Chapter 2793. Yi Qinghan led the others and fled into the distance after discovering the danger ahead of time. The life force of this alien star was too active. The immemorial emperor had discovered it but couldn't catch up to it. Yi Qinghan only had time to stay on his natal star for a few decades and only had time to consolidate his cultivation technique. He didn't even have time to take a look at his natal star. They fled across dozens of galaxies. Yi Qinghan led the group and landed on a life planet. Everyone restrained their aura and didn't dare to release the slightest bit of power. The current Yi Qinghan was deep and reserved. His battle prowess surpassed the Saint Blood Tribe's Patriarch and the Tao Patrol. However, he couldn't be compared to peak existences like the Giant Spirit Emperor. The main reason was that he didn't have enough time. If he could cultivate on his natal star for tens of thousands of years, it wouldn't be a problem. However, the enemy wouldn't give him too much time. Yi Qinghan hid in an ancient inn on one of the nascent stars and panted heavily. Even though his combat strength had increased by a lot, he still couldn't take it after fleeing so far with more than a dozen people. "Boss, who is chasing us?" The Saint Blood Tribe's leader, Xing Yan, asked in surprise. Yi Qinghan laid on a chair and took a long time to calm down. He shook his head and said, "I don't know. There's an 80% chance that it's the Hall Master of Elite Hall. Even my natal star is afraid of him." "How strong is this Hall Master of Elite Hall?" Zhu Hai asked with a frown. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and gave the final answer. He whispered, "He might be slightly weaker than the immemorial emperor. However, he's definitely weaker than the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor and Yen Zhu. However, he's stronger than the 12 immemorial emperors and much stronger than the Tao Patrol." There was a huge gap between the Taigu Emperor and the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor. The immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor was one of the immemorial emperors, while the Yen ancestor had almost reached the top. No one knew which of the two was stronger. However, the 12 immemorial emperors were obviously born as giant gods. The 12 immemorial emperors had probably existed since the birth of the universe. It would be difficult for anyone to surpass them through cultivation. As for the battle strength of Dao Sun and the others, they were only late-stage Taigu emperors. Their battle strength was far from Giant Spirit Emperor and the others. Previously, Yi Qinghan had a vague idea of their combat strength. But now that he was at the door, he could see it more clearly. Everyone was silent. The Hall Master of Class 1 Hall had actually surpassed the 12 immemorial emperors and the 6 Master Gods. What kind of cultivation was that? Could this group of youngsters kill him? Yi Qinghan looked at everyone's expression and his heart sank. He didn't dare to dampen their enthusiasm and immediately said, "Everyone, don't worry. The Yen tribe has set up a backup plan. This person's strength is monstrous. I'm afraid that he's only slightly weaker than the Hall Master of Elite Hall. Therefore, if that person doesn't appear, the Hall Master of Elite Hall won't dare to act recklessly. If he's restrained by us, the Yen tribe's backup plan will definitely use the fiercest attack to kill or severely injure him. Therefore, if that person doesn't appear, the Hall Master of Elite Hall won't dare to act recklessly." When Zhu Hai and the others heard this, they regained their confidence. "With Sheng Yan and the other brothers and sisters working together, we'll be able to fight against a Tao Patrol. With the 3 of you, we can kill a Tao Patrol. The rest will be left to the crazed manor and that backup plan. Chao Sa and I together might not be able to kill people like the 12 immemorial emperors, but we can hold them off for a while. Even if it's the Hall Master of Elite Hall, the 2 of us can delay him for a while. If we can distract him, the Yen tribe's backup plan will definitely take the opportunity to attack. It's hard to tell who will win. Besides, they might not be able to attack now." "We still have time," Yi Qinghan said firmly. Li Ying glanced coldly at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently, "There's no need to cheer us up. If we were afraid of death, we wouldn't have come out to help you. Our ancestors were exiled from the immemorial immortal world and were killed. We also want revenge. If we don't even have this bit of conviction, how can we call ourselves the Taigu Emperor?" The others nodded and became firm in their conviction. Yi Qinghan looked at everyone. Some of them would become Tao Patrol Emperors, some of them might reach the level of the 12 immemorial emperors. However, There were also some who couldn't even touch the threshold of Dao patrol emperors. Let's rest for 3 months before returning to the immortal world, Yi Qinghan said solemnly. Everyone nodded and had a simple meal before going into seclusion to recuperate. The immortal world had settled down for about 10,000 years. Crazed manner had advanced by leaps and bounds. Many people hoped to see Yi Qinghan come out of seclusion during the 10,000-year ceremony. After not seeing Yi Qinghan for 10,000 years, people's hearts wavered. On this day, the 10,000-year ceremony was about to begin. Zhang Fan was in charge of the 10,000-year ceremony when he received news from various places. Looking at the news, he frowned and felt anger in his heart. Soon after, Zhang Fan brought the news to the military. Chess Sage, Yan Ao, and Huang Peng were all stationed here. Today was also the day of the military's meeting. After all, the 10,000-year ceremony of the immortal world would definitely cause chaos if Yi Qinghan didn't appear. The army had to be prepared in advance. Zhang Fan brought the news to the meeting hall and placed it in front of everyone. He scolded, "This bunch of bastards. They fled into the ocean during a war and came back to snatch back their territories during a peaceful time. They even clashed with the natives. Those who fled back then were generally stronger and the natives weren't a match for them. They caused the heavens to be angry and resentful. Now, they actually extended their hands into some medicinal fields." Yan Ao and the rest received the news in astonishment. After reading through it, they realized that many people fled into the depths of the ocean during the war. However, a portion of them returned to the immortal world later on. However, there was still a large portion of them who didn't manage to return in time. Now that they had returned, they wanted to take back their territories and were even asking for more. Yan Ao rubbed his eyes and asked indifferently, "How many of them are there?" Chess Sage and the rest also looked at Zhang Fan. Zhang Fan shook his head and said helplessly, "There are a lot of them. Most importantly, many of them were from the Big Boss Club back then. Their hearts are united. If we forcefully suppress them, I'm afraid they might join hands." Yan Ao sneered. Back then, they didn't do anything. Now they want to share the spoils of war. What wishful thinking. Chess Sage sneered and said indifferently, "Pacify them first. It's best not to see blood on the eve of the ceremony. Once the ceremony is over, kill them all. Leave no one alive." Hiss! Zhang Fan sucked in a breath of cold air. He realized that Chess Sage was really ruthless. A few hundred big bosses and the families behind them were also a very powerful force. Agreed. Yan Ao raised his hand without hesitation. Huang Peng raised his hand in agreement. Di Longtian represented the ancient massacre god and also raised his hand in agreement. If those people were obedient, they could still be kept alive. But since they weren't, they deserved to be killed. Yun Rui was a native back then and was chosen by Lu Aotian. Now that he was a general, he understood that the natives weren't reliable. Therefore, he agreed without hesitation. Lu Aotian was also a ruthless person. As the saying goes, merciful people don't lead the army. His attitude was even firmer. All the big bosses of the military agreed to kill after the ceremony to establish their might. At this moment, Zhang Fan knew that the fate of these people would be very miserable. They might even be exterminated. Then what about the children of the families or sects? We can't kill the children, right? Zhang Fan reminded. Yan Ao sighed and said calmly, "Leave the women and children. Crazy manner isn't a murderous demon. Leave them a job but forbid them from cultivating." Chapter 2794. At this moment, the everlasting celestial nation was no longer as peaceful as it used to be. The big shots who left back then took advantage of the fact that the land belonged to them. They cried and begged, causing a huge ruckus, tying Quang Manor to the war chariot of morality, wanting Quang Manor to give them a large portion of the herb fields. Although the natives who stayed behind were weak, they refused to budge an inch. This was not only their territory, but also their job. If the Quang Manor gave the herb fields to these people, they would have to work for them. At that time, their salaries would be undetermined, and they might not even be treated as adults by the other party. One side gathered, demanding Quang Manor to return their ancestral land, while the other side protested, demanding Kuang Manor to refuse. Both sides often clashed, and gradually, bloodshed began. Among the hundreds of big shots, there were both the younger generation and the older generation. They displayed their shamelessness to the extreme. Some of the older generation even began to ask Zhang Fan and the other experts of Jingfan Mountain for help, hoping that they would speak up and help them get their ancestral land back. Zhang Fan looked at their faces with disdain, especially when he begged them to stay back, but they didn't care at all. Now, they even had the gall to ask him for help. "You won't even know how you died." Zhang Fan sneered in his heart as he watched them fooling around from afar. The Celestial Nation ceremony was in preparation, but judging by the time, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to make it back. Jian Chenxue was now overseeing the sky-gazing mountain, and the capital was set to be the Heaven-Suppressing Palace. The entire Heaven-Suppressing Palace was now luxurious, and the North Town was filled with people. Many experts came to pay their respects, hoping to witness the majesty of the Celestial Nation's monarch. Only Jian Chenxue and Emperor Yi knew that Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to make it back in time. She had the pouch given to her by Yi Qinghan, and she might be able to use it in the upcoming Celestial Nation ceremony. About a month later, everything was prepared, and the ceremony was about to begin. Red lanterns were hung up high, and the entire everlasting Celestial Nation was in a festive mood. However, there was a group of people who weren't afraid of death. Back then, the group of people from the Big Shots Club had banded together to claim a share of the herb fields. Moreover, they had taken advantage of the grand ceremony to humiliate the crazed manor and ruin their reputation in front of countless people in the Immortal Nation. After all, the Immortal Nation grand ceremony would definitely be broadcasted live to the entire undying immortal realm. Moreover, it would be broadcast to all major cities for free. A white-haired old man looked at the crowd and sneered, "Let's wait for the broadcast to start and the ceremony to begin. We will condemn Kuang Manor outside the Heaven-Suppressing Palace. We will take away their ancestral land and take away their lives. Let's see if Kuang Manor will return our land to us." "Will we anger the crazy manor?" a middle-aged man asked in a deep voice. "Ha!" The white-haired elder laughed and said, "The law can't punish too many people. Besides, we're not to be trifled with. There are hundreds of big shots, and 3 of them are in their 4th state. So what if we offend the Kuang Manor? Does the Kuang Manor dare to kill us in front of the entire world and admit to our crimes? Which piece of land should we choose? I'm afraid we have to be careful after offending the Kuang Manor this time. If we can work together to claim a piece of land, we can camp together and protect each other." The group of big shots were discussing seriously. However, the Kuang Manor looked amusing as the Kuang Manor had no intention of letting them live. "We want the Void Ridge. That is a piece of land with good feng shui." The leading old man was excited as if he had his eyes on that piece of land for a long time. He said loudly, "The herb fields in the Void Ridge produce high-quality herbs. We will take the Void Ridge." Soon, the group of people came to a conclusion. Among the 320 big shots, some were newly ascended while some were older. All of them had decent combat prowess and they worked together to move into the Heaven-Suppressing Palace during the grand ceremony. The whereabouts of this group of people had long been known by the Kuang Manor. Even their discussions had been received by the Kuang Manor. However, Yen Ao and the Chess Saint did not want to kill anyone during the grand ceremony. Thus, they chose to be patient. On the second day, the heaven and earth rumbled, the myriad of skills roared, the sound of zither reverberated throughout the river, and the living beings cheered. Jian Chenxue appeared as the empress, presiding over the grand ceremony on behalf of Yi Qinghan while Emperor Yi, Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and Bai Shaoxing sat at the side like the empress. Many were surprised to see Jian Chenxue occupying the position of empress. They all thought that Emperor Yi was the rightful empress. Only the older generation of the Kuang Manor knew that Jian Chenxue was irreplaceable, not even Emperor Yi. Jian Chenxue wore a snow-white robe and a golden crown. With the immemorial yin-yang sword in her hand, she slowly sat at the main seat in the Heaven-Suppressing Palace's plaza. The live projection was activated and the scene was projected out from every angle. The older generation of the Kuang Manor, other than Yen Yunbei, had all returned to their positions. The district master and the natives were all appointed as officials while the chess saint was appointed as the commander of the army alongside Yenao. The experts were all gathered in the heaven-suppressing palace. My lord is in closed-door cultivation and has no time to attend the ceremony. I, the empress, will be here to share your burden. Today, I announce that the Quang Manor will be pardoned and the people will celebrate together. I hope that the Quang Manor will never wither away. What? The war banner of the Quang Manor fluttered in the wind while the banners of the ancient massacre god and heaven-conquering camp stood beside it. What? The experts were shocked and they all cheered. Countless armies responded and raised their morale to the highest level. Many of the celebrations had yet to begin and the group of experts that escaped showed up. The old man in the fourth state, Yang Wei, stood out and stared straight at Jian Chenshua. Empress Mother, we plead on behalf of the heavens. We hope that the Celestial Empire will return our ancestral lands to us. Such a vast celestial empire, invading our ancestral lands and expanding our territory, don't tell me you don't want the people of the world to continue living? Yang Wei spoke in a solemn tone, trying to sound imposing. The crowd quieted down and they all stared at Yang Wei and the other experts angrily. Jian Chenshua stared at the crowd. She was trying to intimidate the world, but she could not intimidate these greedy people. Who are you? When did the Quang Manor invade your ancestral lands? Back then, the Quang Manor opened up the herb fields with everyone's consent, but I did not see any of you. Jian Chenshua's face was solemn, and she was neither happy nor angry. We were in the depths of the sea and did not have time to return. Yang Wei argued and did not back down. Jian Chenshua smiled and asked, when the Quang Manor led the trillions of people to fight against Class 1 Hall and seek peace, where were you? Lingering at death's door and escaping overseas? Now that peace has arrived, you came back to snatch the spoils of war and even cause trouble during the Quang Manor ceremony. Do you want the trillions of people to support you? Do you think the people of the world are fools or that you are too smart? We all have the desire to escape. We temporarily gave up on our ancestral lands, but it does not mean that we will give it up forever. Now that we are back, the ancestral lands should be returned to us. Yang Wei said solemnly. Jian Chenshua's fingertips moved the scabbard and said indifferently, all right, I will bury all of you in your ancestral lands. I will not let you be buried half a step away from your ancestral lands. Jian Chenshua waved her hand mercilessly. So what if it was a ceremony? Capture all of them and choose a day to behead them. Leave no one alive. Jian Chenshua was even more ruthless. If she did not take the opportunity to suppress them now and Yi Qinghan did not return, who knew how much trouble he would cause? The chess saint's pupils shrank. He thought that he was calm and ruthless enough, but today he realized that the people around Yi Qinghan were all ruthless and ruthless. What? The Quang Manor's inner sect army drew their swords and trapped the 300 experts in the center. Yen Ao even personally took action and suppressed the 3 fourth state experts. The others did not even dare to resist. Clowns, you deserve to die. Chapter 2795. Jian Chenshua showed no mercy when she wanted to kill them in front of everyone. After detaining all of them, she looked straight ahead and said in a deep voice, these people who only know how to plunder without giving anything in return should not be allowed to live. They not only want to plunder the resources that Quang Manor exchanged with their lives, but they also want to trample on all the people's hard work. The herb field was cultivated by countless people and Quang Manor together. No one can plunder it. If you kill them, are you worried that Quang Manor will hurt you in the future? Of course not. Quang Manor will never wither. All the people cheered. Now, they not only enjoyed peace but also equality. In the past, they had to kneel down when they saw the big shots. Now, even if they saw the fourth state, they could speak frankly and communicate. In the past, this was something that they would not have dared to think about. Yang Wei and the others were drenched in cold sweat, terrified and uneasy. Jian Chenshua looked down at the crowd and said in a dignified voice, you underestimate the dignity and prestige of Quang Manor. Quang Manor treats every one of our people well, but not our enemies. Yang Wei, Do you think that Kwang Manor does not know that you are secretly discussing how to make the Celestial Empire lose face during the ceremony and encroach on the Void Ridge's herb field? We can defeat Class 1 Hall, not to mention clowns like you. We don't want to kill you today because we don't want to ruin the solemnity of the ceremony. Arrest them all. 1 month after the ceremony, execute them all. Jian Chenxue waved her hand mercilessly. What? Spare us. More than 300 people screamed in fear, but they were all suppressed in the blink of an eye and thrown into prison. At the same time, the families and sects behind these 300 big shots were all detained by the army. Kwang Manor would never give its enemies a chance. The ceremony continued. This scene did not even affect the mood of the others. Instead, they felt that these people were ridiculous. They actually wanted to join forces to create a small celestial empire and snatch the Void Ridge. What a fool's dream. The ceremony was crazy, but it was even crazier in the ancient immortal world. In 10,000 years, Class 1 Hall had opened up a large area of mountains and rivers, dismantled all the killing restrictions, and arranged for everyone to enter the ancient immortal world. However, Class 1 Hall wantonly recruited geniuses, from the children to the big shots, and began to cultivate them crazily. They only needed true geniuses, monstrous geniuses. The death rate of missions assigned to them was extremely high, but it was also because of this that a large number of geniuses were born. The children from the Kwang Manor had already grown up, but some of them had also been eliminated. Only a dozen or so people were left. At this moment, Yan Yunbei was hiding in the ancient immortal world and training everywhere. He was bitterly cultivating secret techniques and also seeking the Tao. His combat strength was increasing day by day. He traveled to dangerous places all year round to help those children survive. Yi Tong, the son of Void God Yi, had now grown into a big boy. In just 10,000 years, he had successfully stepped into the fourth form and survived countless calamities. He was highly regarded by Class 1 Hall and became the inheritor of Class 1 Hall's imperial weapon, becoming the new Saber Emperor. No one would think that Yi Tong was Yi Qinghan's grandson. Moreover, Yi Tong did not have the Yen clan's bloodline. The inherited bloodline in his bones was too thin. Yi Qinghan's Yen clan's bloodline was previously stimulated by the Yen Emperor's blood. Therefore, Yi Qinghan himself was a rank 1 mortal. No one would be able to find out that Yi Tong was Yi Qinghan's grandson. Lin Shukong's son, Lin Emo, was a very delicate young man. He looked very weak. Back then, he had joined Class 1 Hall's heaven as a beggar. He had a clean background and was highly regarded by Class 1 Hall. He became the last disciple of the Tao Patrol and received far more resources than the other members of Class 1 Hall. The missions were very dangerous, but the Tao Patrol would secretly follow him every time. However, Lin Emo had never disappointed him. His sharp sword Tao shocked the Tao Patrol. That was the sword intent that burst out from his bones, on par with the heavens. Innate sword bone. These two people were the representatives of Kwang Manor. Now, Yan Yunbei would contact the remaining group of people once every 1,000 years to strengthen their beliefs. However, at first glance, these children were very reliable. They had strong wills and would not regret even if they died. Of the children sent by Kwang Manor, other than those who had died in battle, the rest had all become outstanding members of Class 1 Hall. Some were even chosen by the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall. On this day, Yan Yunbei stood in the distance and silently looked at Class 1 Hall's heaven. It was located deep in the mountains. Only 1/3 of the people were qualified to wear a mask. Those who could wear a mask were all recognized by Class 1 Hall and had very high combat strength. I really don't know if some children will lose control and become a direct descendant of Class 1 Hall. Yan Yunbei was not sure. After all, there were too many uncontrollable factors. Whoosh, whoosh, a figure passed through the mountain range. It was a place that had yet to be developed. Forbidden areas were everywhere. Very few people would appear here. The new generation Saber Emperor, Yi Tong, stepped inside with his saber in hand. Every day, he would go to the depths to gain experience. This was something that everyone knew. Patrols had also followed him many times, but they didn't find anything. Therefore, at this moment, there was even less of a doubt. Looking at Yi Tong entering the depths, Yan Yunbei quietly hid in the dark and followed Yi Tong silently. He was also secretly observing if anyone was following him. Yi Tong walked all the way into the depths. First, he trained for a while. Then, he turned and walked towards a place that no one had set foot in before. Yan Yunbei appeared beside Yi Tong. The dagger in his hand slashed and appeared on Yi Tong's neck. He said softly, "Don't move." Yi Tong's body trembled. Before the saber in his hand could release saber intent, the dagger was already close to his throat. "I said don't move." Yan Yunbei waved his hand and pressed down the saber. He reached out and took off the mask. He found that this person was not Yi Tong. He took Yi Tong's mask and saber. Puchi. Yan Yunbei did not hesitate to slit Yi Tong's throat. Boundless killing intent penetrated Yi Tong's limbs and bones. The saber fell to the ground. Then he put Yi Tong's mask back on and quietly disappeared into the forest. In a deep forest, Yan Yunbei was nervous. Someone actually pretended to be Yi Tong and came to meet him. Could it be that Yi Tong was exposed? Not long after Yan Yunbei left, the patrols appeared. He observed from afar. Yan Yunbei just killed this person when he got close. There was no communication. This person is here to kill Yi Tong? The patrol's eyes flashed coldly. He was also suspicious. If this person was in contact with Yi Tong, he should not have killed him immediately. The patrol's brows furrowed. He recalled the information of Kwang Manor and thought to himself, this person's aura is restrained. He is in charge of assassinations. He should be Kwang Manor's older generation, Yan Yunbei. I did not expect that someone from Kwang Manor would sneak into the ancient immortal world. The heavens are really helping me. The patrols took the mask and saber and returned to Class 1 Hall's heaven. Yi Tong was cultivating in seclusion. At this moment, the door was forced open. The patrols appeared in the room. Kwang Manor's Yan Yunbei has appeared, the patrols said coldly. His eyes were staring at Yi Tong's eyes. Yi Tong was shocked, but his face was expressionless. He asked, "Who is Yan Yunbei?" "The person who is going to kill you. Today, I sent someone to wear your clothes and mask and bring your saber." The other party followed and killed the person who disguised as you without hesitation. He did not even ask a question. It seems like this person wants to assassinate a genius of Class 1 Hall. "So, I want to use you as bait to lure him out," the patrol said calmly. Yi Tong pretended to be shocked and asked, "Is this person very strong?" The patrols looked at Yi Tong's expression and nodded. "Very strong. There is no one in the older generation of Kwang Manor who is not strong. He can kill without spilling blood. So, I want to capture him alive. I want to know if there is anyone else from Kwang Manor who has sneaked into the ancient immortal world." Whoosh! Yi Tong stood up and bowed with cupped fists. "I am willing to serve Lord Patrols with my life. This time, I will personally lure Yan Yunbei. With my battle strength, I can at least hold him back for a while. When the time comes, Lord can join forces with the other disciples of Class 1 Hall and block him somewhere. We can catch him like a turtle in a jar." The patrols nodded in satisfaction and praised, "Good. As expected of the new Saber Emperor that I have my eyes on. If we can capture Yan Yunbei alive this time, you will have the greatest merit. I will recommend you to the Hall Master to cultivate the real Taigu Emperor's technique." "Thank you, Lord Patrols. I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." Yi Tong was determined. Chapter 2796. The ancient immortal world was full of danger. The patrol was not confident in finding Yan Yunbei, who was good at hiding. A large number of Class 1 Hall disciples went out and started to cast a net to lure Yan Yunbei out. It was Yan Yunbei's first time facing so many Class 1 Hall disciples. It was obvious that they were here for him. Yi Tong appeared with a saber in hand. He wandered around, but the Class 1 Hall disciples kept circling around him, forming an encirclement. However, there was still a large number of openings for him to enter. As an assassin, Yan Yunbei was best at observation. He quickly determined that Yi Tong was the bait, he was the prey, and the patrol was the hunter. "Does the patrol think I'm here to assassinate the strongest disciple of Class 1 Hall?" Yan Yunbei guessed. "He used someone else to disguise as Yi Tong to lure me. He must be suspicious of Yi Tong. It seems that if I don't kill him once, it will be difficult to get rid of his suspicion. Yan Yunbei knew that once he appeared, it would be difficult to escape. However, he had to take action. Yan Yunbei did not directly attack Yi Tong. Instead, he chose a powerful Class 1 Hall disciple from the periphery. This person was definitely not an expert from Crazy Manor. Silently, Yan Yunbei pounced. With a flash of his dagger, endless laws of order destroyed everything. He directly slashed the neck of the Class 1 Hall disciple. Puchi. Blood splattered everywhere as the corpse fell to the ground. After killing one person, Yan Yunbei quickly fled. He constantly changed his direction and left the scene. He did not even think about killing a second person. The patrol did not react in time and allowed Yan Yunbei to escape. He could not help but be furious. He began to mobilize the previous generation of Class 1 Hall disciples. These people were already very strong. Even if Yan Yunbei wanted to kill them, he had to fight for a while. This time, the killing formation he set up was even more dangerous. Yan Yunbei took the risk and came again. He killed another young Class 1 Hall disciple and left again after he succeeded. He killed others to divert the patrol's attention. The patrol had observed that Yi Tong was very strange every time he went out. That was why he ordered someone to disguise as Yi Tong. He did not expect to attract an assassin from Crazy Manor. After several attempts, Yan Yunbei succeeded 3 times and failed twice. However, he left calmly each time. The patrol could not find any trace of Yan Yunbei at all. His strength was close to that of the Emperor Dao. He came and went without a trace. He did not have a fixed target to kill. Whoever he caught would be unlucky. It all depended on who would be alone. This time, the Dao patrol ordered Yi Tong to go alone. He didn't allow anyone else to follow him. Yi Tong was ordered to go deep into the enemy's territory by himself while he followed him in the dark. Moreover, he followed from a very far distance to see if Yan Yunbei would appear. Yi Tong didn't refute. No matter what, if Yan Yunbei appeared today, he had to kill him. If he didn't kill Yan Yunbei, then Yan Yunbei would kill him. For the great plan of 10,000 years, sacrifices were inevitable. Yi Tong slowly walked into the depths, and he got further and further away from Class 1 Hall's training grounds. Yan Yunbei knew that the opportunity to clear Yi Tong's name had come. A ferocious glint flashed across Yan Yunbei's eyes as he approached quietly. He hid in an ancient tree and observed the fluctuations of Emperor Qi in the distance. However, he did not move at all. Tap tap tap, Yi Tong moved forward slowly. The saber in his hand vibrated continuously, emitting a murderous aura. Soon, Yi Tong appeared under the tree where Yan Yunbei was hiding. He did not see Yan Yunbei, but Yan Yunbei was watching him. Whoosh! Yan Yunbei's attack was ruthless. A cold glint flashed and he appeared behind Yi Tong. His hand was already at Yi Tong's neck. Boom! Yi Tong reacted quickly. The saber in his hand collided with the dagger, causing sparks to fly. However, Yan Yunbei definitely had more than one killer move. He changed his moves quickly. The dagger appeared in his left hand and he attacked Yi Tong from the other side. Puchi! The dagger cut through Yi Tong's shoulder. It was only a few millimeters away from his neck. Yan Yunbei did not show any mercy. Boom! Yi Tong was even more ruthless. He exchanged injury for injury and attacked Yan Yunbei's left arm with his saber. Yan Yunbei's left arm was almost cut off. The blade cut through his battle robe and blood appeared. Bang! Yan Yunbei was extremely ruthless. He kicked Yi Tong's chest and sent him flying. The dagger pierced through the void and went straight for Yi Tong's head. Dao patroller stood in the distance and did not prepare to attack. He wanted to see if Yan Yunbei really wanted to kill him. However, Yan Yunbei had made a total of 3 moves, and each of them was fatal. There were a few times when Yi Tong's throat was almost pierced. If he did not attack now, Yi Tong would definitely die. Boom! The Emperor's sword pierced through the clouds and attacked from the void. It was as fast as lightning. Dao patroller intercepted Yan Yunbei's fatal attack and saved Yi Tong. Yan Yunbei's dagger clashed with the tip of Dao patroller's sword. In a flash, he used the momentum to escape. His figure flashed and disappeared. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yen Yunbei escaped, but Dao Patroller chased after him. Dao Patroller's sword pierced through the void and continuously destroyed ancient trees. Yen Yunbei was forced to escape in a sorry state. There were a few times when his blood almost dyed the void red. There was a cliff that was extremely deep. It was filled with thick fog. When Yen Yunbei saw that Dao Patroller was about to catch up, he jumped into the cliff without hesitation. He used the thick fog to escape. His escape technique was extremely strange. Dao Patroller seemed to know this place better. The corner of his mouth raised into a cold smile. You are seeking your own death. You don't even know where this place is. How dare you barge in? Dao Patroller's figure flashed and actually followed him in. There was actually a paradise in the depths. An old man was sitting cross-legged inside. He had a fat head and big ears. He was obviously different from humans. He was extremely ugly. The left half of his body was almost chopped off, but he was still alive. It was extremely tragic. This person was one of the 12 immemorial emperors, Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor. He was an immortal emperor. He had existed since the birth of the universe and was still alive. Back then, when he fought with Yen Zhu, he was still alive. Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor was actually hiding here to recuperate. Unfortunately, Yen Yunbei actually entered the depths of this place. Once Yen Yunbei entered, he felt that something was wrong. The Emperor's aura here was much denser than Dao Patroller's. The smell of blood was very strong and evil aura filled the air. It was as if this place was another world. When he reached the depths of the cliff, there was no longer fog below. Instead, it was a path that led to the heavens. There were mountains and forests everywhere. Immortal treasures and godly medicines filled the air. Yen Yunbei's gaze swept past an ancient palace in the distance. Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor caught a glimpse and almost killed Yen Yunbei's soul. Boom! Yen Yunbei fell to the ground. His soul was in pain, but he endured it and quickly escaped into the depths. However, Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor had no intention of chasing after him. Xiao that the Dao Patroller stepped through the air and cupped his fists. Senior Shocking, Junior was ordered by the Hall Master to capture a thief. He has already fallen into this place. Please tell me his whereabouts. Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were as big as fists. They flashed with an ominous glint as he stared at the Dao Patroller. You used the name of the Hall Master to disturb this Emperor's cultivation time and time again. Do you think this Emperor doesn't dare to kill you? Heaven's shocking Taigu Emperor coldly shouted. His voice was like thunder exploding in the valley. It shook the Dao Patroller until his heart hurt and his face turned pale. The Dao Patroller's expression changed greatly. He quickly bowed and said, Junior doesn't dare. This time, the enemy is the helper of the Yen clan. He broke into this place. I was worried that he would sneak attack you, so I rashly chased after him. I wanted to capture him so that he wouldn't disturb your cultivation. Chapter 2797. None of the 12 immemorial emperors were to be trifled with. To put it simply, other than the monster Yen Zhu, no one had managed to surpass this level of cultivation. They were the 12 immemorial emperors and the 6 immemorial master gods. The heaven-shaking immemorial emperor was shorter than the giant spirit emperor by half, but he was still taller than the average person. He looked like a half-human half-beast. His forehead was bulging, his eyes were as big as fists, and his big ears could hear things from 1,000 miles away. Even experts like Yen Yunbei who were hiding could hear something strange. However, he was very dissatisfied with the Dao Patrol and did not like him, so he did not want to help him capture people. He only said coldly, "Get out, there is no one you want here." The Dao Patrol's expression changed. He did not expect Taigu Emperor to throw a tantrum. He quickly bowed and said, "Sir, this is the Hall Master's order, Hua." Heaven's startling immemorial emperor slowly stood up. Half of his body was gone, and his ribs were clearly visible. His eyes were filled with disdain as he stared at Dao Patrol. He licked his lips and said coldly, "You want to use him to pressure me? If it was not for the Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor, I would have killed him right now. I am now living like a ghost, thanks to him." You have already disturbed me 3 times. There will not be a 4th time. Are you going to get out or not? Hua! The Dao patrol did not hesitate and left the valley. He did not dare to use the hall master of the elite hall to pressure Taigu Emperor. After a while, Taigu Emperor's ears twitched, and he quickly identified Yan Yunbei's location. Hua! A big hand pierced through the void and forced Yan Yunbei out of the alternate space. He waved his hand and caught Yan Yunbei. Taigu Emperor did not make a move, but once he made a move, it was earth-shattering. Yan Yunbei was confident that he could fight against the Dao patrol. However, he did not even have the chance to fight back against the Taigu Emperor. He was directly caught in the big hand. Yan Yunbei was shocked. Seeing Taigu Emperor at such a close distance made his hair stand on end. The pressure was so strong that he did not dare to look directly at him. The 12 immemorial emperors were indeed not easy to deal with. You are not from the Yan clan. The Taigu Emperor's thunderous voice made Yan Yunbei's ears hurt. Yan Yunbei took in a deep breath. He was completely unable to move Mo Wuji's 5 fingers. He could only reply truthfully, I'm not from the Yan clan. The Yan clan has already been exterminated. I'm merely a person from the undying immortal world. The Taigu Emperor swung his hand and smashed Yan Yunbei into the ground, shattering the earth. Yan Yunbei's body twisted in pain. His internal organs were almost shattered. Class 1 hall has become yours, and it's all because of your selfish desires. It's no longer for the glory of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. It's also not to prevent the ancient gods and ancient immortals from declining. The Taigu Emperor roared. Although Yan Yunbei was in pain, he could hear the other party's dissatisfaction with Class 1 Hall's hall master. He immediately struggled to stand up and reminded in a deep voice, Lord Taigu Emperor has not gone out for many years. You don't understand the outside world at all. Now that the ancient gods and ancient immortals have already declined, even the Emperor's inheritance has declined. Class 1 Hall is fighting everywhere. Even the inheritors of the Emperor's weapon can suppress the inheritors of the Emperor's inheritance. They are flaunting their power and berating the inheritors of the Emperor's inheritance. Boom! The Taigu Emperor was furious. He smashed the rocks with his hand, causing the entire valley to shake. His eyes were fixed on Yan Yunbei. Are you serious? The Taigu Emperor asked coldly. Yan Yunbei took a deep breath. He knew that his chance had come. He immediately said, yes. For his own selfish desires, the Emperor's inheritance was forced to kneel to a divine general. I saw it with my own eyes. Impudent! The Taigu Emperor was furious. This was a great humiliation to the Taigu Emperor. Even if the inheritors of the Emperor's inheritance were not from the Taigu clan, they could not tolerate it. Yan Yunbei immediately bowed and said, Junior feels that the Emperor's inheritance is not worth it. The 12 emperors and the 6 great gods of the immemorial age fought to the death for Class 1 Hall. In the end, the Emperor's inheritance's status was even lower than someone that the Emperor's inheritance could use in the eyes of the Emperor's inheritance. The Taigu Emperor was burning with anger. He waved his hand, and his life-bound heaven staff shot out from Class 1 Hall's heavenly hall. In the blink of an eye, it tore through the void and appeared in the cliff. Boom! The heaven staff became longer and thicker. It ruthlessly stabbed into the ground beside the Taigu Emperor. This was how the Emperor's weapon looked like when it was beside the 12 emperors of the immemorial age. Divine light flowed and soared into the sky. Lord Taigu Emperor, Class 1 Hall's hall master is very powerful now, and you are half crippled. You can't recklessly settle the score with them. Even if the hall master is willing to compromise, it will only be a temporary measure. She will not care about the Emperor's inheritance in her heart. Yan Yunbei lowered his voice and reminded him. The Taigu Emperor stared at Yan Yunbei. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He asked in a deep voice, Are you willing to submit to me? I will teach you the real Emperor's technique of the 12 immemorial emperors. Yan Yunbei was stunned. He asked curiously, Could it be that the Emperor's technique of Class 1 Hall is not real? The Taigu Emperor sneered and said disdainfully, Who doesn't know how to keep a trump card? The techniques of Class 1 Hall can only unleash 30% of the Emperor's technique's power. Why would we, the 12 emperors and the 6 immemorial gods, show our fatal weakness to others? Even the secret techniques of our clansmen are not complete. The Taigu emperor was too confident. He thought that he was immortal and did not need a real inheritor. But he did not expect that the Taigu emperor would die. Yan Yunbei took a deep breath and knelt down on one knee. This junior is willing to take the heaven-shocking emperor as his master. It was better to live than to die. This was the rule of the crazy manor. How could he be stronger than the 12 emperors of the immemorial age? Yan Yunbei obviously would not die heroically. You have learned the heaven-shocking staff technique. I only want you to do 2 things for me. First, go to the ancient immortal world Sky Ascension Peak and retrieve a heavenly medicine to help me recover my strength. Second, accompany me to kill the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall. The Taigu Emperor was silent. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He was unhappy that the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall had taken Class 1 Hall as his personal property. Now, there was one more thing that he could not tolerate. Forcing the inheritor of an emperor to kneel to a god general was a disgrace. Unforgivable. The Taigu emperor had his pride as a Taigu emperor. How could Yan Yunbei not agree? He immediately nodded and said, "This disciple is willing to do his best to retrieve the heavenly medicine and kill the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall. I am willing to die as a pawn. I will teach you the real Taigu emperor's technique." Whoosh. Yan Yunbei sat cross-legged on the ground with his back facing the Taigu emperor. Whoosh. The Taigu emperor waved his hand. The emperor's technique enveloped Yan Yunbei. Countless runes appeared in Yan Yunbei's mind. The emperor's staff technique was attached. A small person danced in Yan Yunbei's mind. As expected, it was much more powerful than the staff technique of the inheritor of the heaven-shocking staff technique outside. Endless Emperor's technique appeared in Yan Yunbei's mind. It was difficult to understand and gave him a splitting headache. After a long time, the Taigu Emperor let go. Yan Yunbei was still in pain. He could not bear such a majestic emperor's technique wreaking havoc in his mind. After half a day, Yan Yunbei finally recovered. The Taigu Emperor said coldly, "Do you know why I chose you?" Yan Yunbei obviously did not know. However, he could see that the Taigu Emperor had no other choice. First, my clansmen were detained by the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall. I can't trust anyone. Second, you cultivate assassination techniques and your whereabouts are unpredictable. You can help me save my clansmen. Third, there are experts guarding Sky Ascension Peak. Without some ability, you can't go up. Chapter 2798. Yan Yunbei had profited from his misfortune and obtained Shocking Taigu Emperor's inheritance instead. Shocking Taigu Emperor couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't find a second person apart from Yan Yunbei. Since Yan Yunbei dared to go against Class 1 Hall, he definitely wasn't afraid of death. Thus, he couldn't force him or place restrictions on him. Restrictions couldn't control those who weren't afraid of death, only those who were. Clearly, Yan Yunbei wasn't afraid of death. Under the personal guidance of Shocking Taigu Emperor, Yan Yunbei cultivated the Shocking Emperor's staff art much faster than the Emperor's inheritance. No one understood the principles of the Shocking Emperor's staff art better than Shocking Taigu Emperor. Under his guidance, even those with a bit of talent would improve by leaps and bounds, let alone Yan Yunbei. At this time, the Celestial Kingdom ceremony had ended. The 300 members of the Big Shot Club were all killed and buried under the herb fields. Their blood was used to irrigate the fields, causing those who wanted to take advantage of the situation to give up completely. They were also more determined to follow Crazy Manor from the start. If you don't accompany the sunset, who are you to rise again from the east? Crazy Manor wanted to tell the world that if you want to enjoy, you have to pay the price first. Don't expect to run away as soon as there is a war and come back when there is peace. How can there be so many good things in the world? This operation was also to prepare for the next war so that when Class 1 Hall attacked again, it wouldn't be a mess again. After Crazy Manor settled down, Yiqing Han brought the 13 experts back to the undying immortal realm. The entire immortal realm had changed. It was no longer as desolate as before. There were herb fields everywhere, and they cultivated their own resources. Heaven and earth arrays were everywhere, and the laws of order were much stronger. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Seeing that the immortal realm had stabilized, he was completely relaxed. Li Ying and the others looked at how beautiful the undying immortal realm was. Although they thought that most of it had been mined, it was still more beautiful than the ancient world. They couldn't help but praise, "What a beautiful world! I wonder what the ancestral land's ancient immortal realm is like." These people had never seen the ancestral land's ancient immortal realm before. Yi Qinghan looked up at the void. Back then, the node between the two worlds had disappeared. Class 1 Hall's Hall Master used a great ability to sever the relationship. Those from the ancient immortal realm couldn't return, and those from the immortal realm couldn't enter. Yi Qinghan led the group across the void ridge, crossed countless territories and arrived at the heaven-suppressing palace a month later. Over the past 10,000 years, the overall strength of the immortal realm had increased by leaps and bounds. It was rich in resources, and as long as one was willing to work hard, there was no need to worry about a lack of resources. The fighting strength of Crazed Manor had also increased by leaps and bounds, especially the experts who had fought Class 1 Hall to the death. They had advanced by leaps and bounds, almost reaching the Dao Patrol realm. Chitian Monkey King improved the fastest. Yi Qinghan's battle prowess had increased by several folds. Now, he was somewhat similar to Yi Qinghan. Back then, he had fought to the death with Sovereign Yi and the others against the inheritor of the ancient river. This had indeed made others look at him in a new light. At this moment, Yen Ao had already refined the Yen ancestors' arms. The compatibility between the ears and eyes of the Yen clan was even more terrifying than Yi Qinghan's. It was as if these two legs, ears, and eyes were originally his. Now, Yen Ao had officially replaced the #1 sovereign in the world and was in charge of the military. Even Chess Saint did not dare to act recklessly. If it wasn't for Yen Ao, Chess Saint would have already lost his patience. If he wanted to use his army to fight against Class 1 Hall, he would have destroyed the immortal realm and plundered all its resources. Unfortunately, Yen Ao had been suppressing him, preventing him from plundering the immortal realm's resources. With 5 million strong heaven-conquering army, the resources consumed were astronomical. If he was allowed to act recklessly, the others would not be able to cultivate anymore. But even so, Crazed Manor would give 40% of their resources to Chess Saint every year, allowing him to be at ease. Boon Yi Qinghan appeared outside of the heaven-suppressing palace with a dozen experts. He unleashed his aura and the Crazed Manor's older experts immediately sensed it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In just a blink of an eye, dozens of experts appeared outside of the heaven-suppressing palace. They were the Crazed Manor's older generation, Chu Shi, Jun Xian, House Master, and the others. Zhu Hai and the others thought that they were strong enough to ascend to the heavens, but they did not expect the Crazed Manor to have so many experts. There were at least 7 to 8 experts that could easily suppress them. They could not help but gasp. Sigh. Yi Xiaosa appeared in his human form, clenched his fist proudly and showed it to the crowd. He said proudly, "Am I cool now?" The Crazed Manor's people couldn't help but roll their eyes at Yi Xiaosa's shameless behavior. Although he was a cold-blooded animal, he had been assimilated by the divine bird. He was so shameless that he did not look like a venomous snake at all. What a handsome snake! Dark Dance did not know the truth and praised with a grin. At this moment, Yi Xiaosa almost flew into the sky. He pointed at Zhu Hai and the others and said, "See this? See this? Even the beauties are praising me. How dare you look down on me?" He ate. Supreme Yi wanted to tell Dark Dance that Yi Xiaosa ate an imperial corpse that had been rotting for countless years, but Yi Xiaosa gave him a tight slap. Supreme Yi was sent flying by the slap and his eyes were seeing stars. Don't listen to his nonsense. You all know how shameless he is. In order to destroy my image in your hearts, he must be trying to slander me. No matter what they say in the future, don't believe them. Yi Xiaosa glared at Zhu Hai and Supreme Yi fiercely and bared his teeth, as if warning them. It seemed that he still cared about the Crazed Manor's attitude towards him. Supreme Yi roared and shouted, "You son of a bitch! How dare you hit the boss? I'll fight it out with you. Boom. Roared at Supreme Yi used the Beast God Cannon and turned into a fierce tiger, punching at Yi Shaosa. Yi Shaosa waved his hand indifferently and pressed down on Supreme Yi's head. No matter how he attacked, the tiger-shaped fist attacked his limbs and bones, but he did not feel anything at all. He had already withstood the wrath of heaven, so why would he care about Supreme Yi's attack? Supreme Yi used his full strength, but Yi Shaosa did not even use 1/10 of his combat strength. Everyone from the crazed manor was shocked. They did not expect the colorful snake to become so strong. In the future, everyone can call me Shaosa. If you respect my strength, you can also call me Brother Shaosa. I will protect you. Yi Shaosa had a smug look on his face as he pressed down on Supreme Yi's head and turned to everyone. There was always a higher mountain, and a person was more despicable than the other. Yi Shaosa and Supreme Yi were as despicable as their names. Crazed Manor had long been used to it. At this moment, they were waving their hands and booing. Only Dark Dance felt that Yi Shaosa was speaking the truth. She even said respectfully, "I think he's very strong. He's stronger than all of us. He's not wrong. Why are you using such an attitude to destroy a child's enthusiasm?" Yi Shaosa had never been recognized by others like this. The heroic spirit of a man poured out. He patted his chest and said, "Little girl, I'll protect you from now on. If anyone dares to bully you, I'll break their 108 ribs and break their inheritance." "Alright, Brother Shaosa," Dark Dance said without holding back. Dark Dance was too naive. She respected experts when she met them. She called everyone from the crazed manor brother and sister. She never made an enemy of anyone. Although she had been cultivating in the Lord God space for many years, most of her time was spent helping others. Perhaps Yi Shaosa was suitable to get along with this kind of girl. She was not scheming and believed everything he said. Yi Qinghan smiled and gestured with his hand. "Everyone, don't watch this group of people make a fool of themselves. Let's go into the main hall and discuss how to deal with Class 1 Hall." Chapter 2799. Zhu Hai, the Blood Saint race, Li Ying and the others followed Yi Qinghan into the inner palace of the heaven-suppressing palace. Many of the experts had yet to come out as Jian Chenxue and Emperor Yi had been busy with the celestial nation's affairs, wasting a lot of time. Jian Chenxue and Emperor Yi saw Yi Qinghan's return and they immediately pounced on him. The Kuang Manor's people only turned around and smiled, some even winked at each other. Zhu Hai, Li Ying, Tang Chu, the Blood Saint race's experts, and the others were too embarrassed to look at Yi Qinghan and his wife hugging each other. So, they began to observe the Kuang Manor's people. All these years, they had heard Yi Qinghan talk about the brothers and sisters of the Kuang Manor. Although they had never seen them before, they could recognize many of them. "If I'm not mistaken, you should be Yan Ao, Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Qitian Monkey King and the others, right?" Sheng Yan pointed at the crowd. He was actually able to recognize everyone from the crazy mansion. The Kuang Manor's people clasped their fists and bowed. Sheng Yan and the others, on the other hand, had heard of Yan Ao and the others for a long time. Now that they were familiar with each other, they started chatting with each other, giving Yi Qinghan enough time and space. At this moment, Hua Lingtian was staring at Li Ying. His heart was moved like never before. However, he couldn't help but show a perverted expression. He walked up to her and smiled. "Beautiful lady, how should I address you?" Li Ying was speechless. Why were some of the Kuang Manor's people so serious and some so perverted? Li Ying said coldly. "I'm Hua Lingtian." Hua Lingtian smiled. Li Ying glanced at him and replied coldly, "I've heard that you are the most perverted and despicable among the Kuang Manor's humans." Hua Lingtian was speechless. He didn't expect his boss to give him such an evaluation. Little did he know that this evaluation came from Sovereign Yi. Sovereign Yi said that you have inherited his true teachings. I don't think that's true. How can a human be so despicable? Now that I've seen it for myself, it's true. This was the first time Li Ying spoke so much, and she was speaking so seriously. She stared at Hua Lingtian as if she could see a flower blossoming out of flowers. Hua Lingtian was not angry. Instead, he said proudly, "You can't be too serious. That's boring. Pretty girl, let me show you around. There are still many places in the undying immortal realm. Now that boss is being pestered by sister-in-law, he probably won't be released for a few years. For the first time, Li Ying did not refuse. She nodded and said, okay. Yi Chenxing and the others immediately widened their eyes. They did not expect this guy to make the first move to pick up a girl. In an instant, at least 3 to 5 experts from Crazy Manor stared at Xing Lan, Xing Yan, and Xing Xianling. First come, first served. Soon, the 3 sisters were led away by several experts from the Crazy Manor. Yi Chenxing did not want anyone. He was all alone. All these years, he had focused on helping Dark Dance, saving lives and helping people. His mentality was very clear. However, Dark Dance did not seem to regard him as a hero. It would take a long time before he could win her over. Soon, the male and female partners left. Only Zhu Hai and the other men were left looking at each other. Yen Ao quickly led the group to tour the various districts of Crazy Manor. After all, the ratio of men to women in the Celestial Nation was too great. There were fewer men and more women. It was easy to find a beauty. Zhu Hai and the others were more interested in pursuing the Tao than in seeking pleasure. Therefore, they were not interested in the relationship between men and women. At this moment, Yi Qinghan, Ren Huangyi, and Jian Chenxue had entered the Celestial Nation's main imperial palace. Yi Qinghan did not only care about being intimate with Jian Chenxue. Over the years, countless pieces of information had accumulated, and there was a lot of information about the ancient immortal realm. No matter how the Hall Master cut off all contact, there were still some clues. Emperor Yi and Jian Chenxue put all the clues about the ancient immortal realm together, especially the most important ones, at the top. Emperor Yi took out a piece of information and said in a crisp voice, "Husband, there is a piece of information here. Someone discovered the fluctuation of the ancient immortal realm. Every 1,000 years, there will be a big fluctuation. The rest of the time, it is very stable. Maybe Class 1 Hall made a mistake and did not block it. However, with our strength, if we forcefully break the node, we are afraid that Class 1 Hall will be alerted. We are also afraid that they are waiting for us. Therefore, we have not touched it." Yi Qinghan looked at the information. The location was in the western part of the North Sea, which should be Shao Thearka's territory relative to the ancient immortal realm. He had checked all the nearby territories and did not find any trace of Class 1 Hall. Therefore, it should not be deliberately left by Class 1 Hall. When was the last fluctuation? Yi Qinghan asked. More than 300 years ago. There are still more than 600 years left. We have observed it several times. It is almost very peaceful. There will definitely be an explosion every 1,000 years. The fluctuation is very obvious, Jian Chenxue replied. Yi Qinghan nodded silently and asked, "Are there any other special clues?" "We found some ancient traces of Class 1 Hall. It is a hall from the Archean era called the Outer Hall. It was buried underground. After it was dug out, most of it rotted. Therefore, there is very little specific information. It is all some unfamiliar words and names. Even Chu Shijun and the others do not know those words. It should not be of much use now," Jian Chenxue said seriously. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said firmly, "No, the more preserved it is, the better the material is. The more important the information is." "Where is that hall?" Emperor Yi replied, "In the Demon's Ceiling Cave. We dug this place out. Although many people were sacrificed, it is still valuable. There are many powerful cultivation methods and resources. The equipment and materials of the ancient gods and ancient immortals have not been destroyed because they are well preserved. My son, come with me. Chenxue, you stay here and take care of the situation." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He was even more certain that there was definitely a big clue in that place. As the saying goes, before the 3 armies move, the provisions will move first. That place was definitely the place where Class 1 Hall's army pushed the resources. It should be a very important outer hall. Emperor Yi and Jian Chenxue did not refuse. After all, Emperor Yi was in charge of the outer hall while Jian Chenxue was in charge of the inner hall. Emperor Yi was more familiar with this matter. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi and soared into the sky. They broke through the void and directly crossed half of the Qingzuan Immortal Empire's original territory and entered the Demon Ceiling Cave. At this time, there was an army stationed here. There were 30,000 ancient killing gods and a group of natives. They were there to prevent external forces from destroying this place. The palaces were newly built to store and protect the excavated ancient books and artifacts. Let's go to the palace first. There are many ancient books and historical records there. There are also some information about the immemorial era. Emperor Yi took the initiative to walk forward and led Yi Qinghan into the main hall. The main hall was filled with ancient artifacts. There was a glass cover made of gold and jade that covered the plaque inside. The words Class 1 Hall were engraved on it. The plaque was rusty and ancient, showing the majesty of Class 1 Hall in the immemorial era. This plaque proved that the Demon Ceiling Cave was a branch of Class 1 Hall in the past. Moreover, it was very important. Some of the ancient books were sealed. They were all wrapped in gold and jade. Not even a trace of aura could enter. They would not rot even if they were placed here for tens of thousands of years. The others are all ancient secret arts. Only some ancient papers here have the arrangements and plans of the past written on them. There are also some names. Emperor Yi led Yi Qinghan to the deepest part. The ancient artifacts here were the most important. Therefore, they were all preserved in the depths of the palace. No one was allowed to get close. Yi Qinghan took down the gold and jade covers and carefully read the plans written on them. Take the Yen Emperors. Capture the Yen Emperors. Capture the 3 million Yen clan. The Emperor personally. Resource. Await. Many bamboo slips had rotted and only fragmented words were left. It was very difficult to restore them. Chapter 2800. One bamboo scroll revealed the meticulous plan of Class 1 Hall. They really did take Yen Emperor's life at Crying Ghost Mountain Ridge. Someone from the 12 immemorial emperors must have come personally, but no one knew which Taigu emperor it was. Crying Ghost Mountain Ridge buried 3 million Yen clan's deathsworn. Those 3 million soldiers must be the elites of the Yen clan or they wouldn't be led by Yen Emperor himself. Another bamboo scroll had a line of words carved on it. In Emperor, 5 million ancient gods. Fallen. This battle, although we won, we lost. This was a report of the battle, but for some reason, it wasn't sent out even though they had already won. However, from these words, one could see how tragic the battle at Ghost Weeping Ridge was. Yin Emperor personally went out. Although he killed Yen Emperor and 3 million Yen clan loyalists, 5 million ancient gods and ancient immortals also died. Yen Emperor's strength is so strong. Yi Qinghan looked at the bamboo scrolls and discovered that Yen Ao's strength had not reached its peak yet. The trump card left behind by the Flame Ancestor should be comparable to the Flame Emperor. The Flame Emperor was able to defeat Class 1 Hall even when one of the 12 ancient emperors, the Yin Emperor, personally came out. Yi Qinghan continued reading the other bamboo scrolls and finally, he found an unfamiliar name in one of the bamboo scrolls. Chu Jun. Yi Qinghan immediately noticed the two words. Who is Chu Jun? Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed, but the Chu Jun bamboo scroll was broken at the front and back. It was rusty and moldy. A light touch would break the entire bamboo scroll. More than 10 words away, he found the word migration. Summon Zhu Hai and the others here. I want to know who this Chu Jun is. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Emperor Yi retreated and quickly returned to Heaven's suppressing prefecture. At this time, Yen Ao was leading the others on a tour. I have discovered something. My husband invites all of you to make a trip over, Emperor Yi hurriedly said. He took the lead and rushed in the direction of the demon ceiling lair. Yen Ao and the others did not hesitate and quickly followed Emperor Yi to Demon Ceiling Cave. Hua! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Liang glanced at them and asked Huolingtian, where are they heading? When Huolingtian saw that Emperor Yi was leading the way, he immediately said, it's in the direction of the Demon Ceiling Cave. Let's go there too. Whoosh! The two of them sped up, turning into roaming dragons as they rushed over. Half a day later, everyone arrived at the Demon Ceiling Cave. Everyone entered the main hall and surrounded Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan pointed at the bamboo slip and asked directly, who was Chu Jun during the primordial era? Perhaps Chu Jun was an honorific title, but it could also be a person's name. However, there was the word migrate behind it, which made it a little strange. If it was an honorific title, Class 1 Hall had an obvious advantage during the ancient era. They were the main attackers, so why would they migrate? If it was a personal name, it should be related to the many families and forces that had escaped. Everyone frowned. During the primordial era, very few people knew the names of the super experts except for the 12 emperors and the 6 master gods. However, these people were not called Chu Jun. At this moment, Li Ying said, in the primordial era, Chu Jun and Crown Prince were pseudonyms. The Crown Prince here should be a direct descendant of one of the 12 emperors. Of course, it could also mean something else. This was only one of the possible explanations. However, Yi Qinghan did not think so. If it was a direct descendant of one of the 12 emperors, why would they migrate? At this moment, Chu Jun Xian asked curiously, could the Chu Jun they are referring to be my Chu Shi lineage? Back then, my clan also migrated and fled during the war. Yi Qinghan stared at the bamboo slip and shook his head. He muttered to himself, this Chu Jun clearly refers to everyone and not a descendant of a family. If I can restore the bamboo slip. Just as Yi Qinghan was muttering to himself, a glint flashed. He suddenly thought of his anti-order nomological laws. Could he reverse the order of the rusty and rotten materials and restore them? Yi Qinghan waved his hand and used the anti-order nomological laws to restore the bamboo slip. Holy light covered it and some of the rotten materials and iron shavings on the bamboo slip were reversed. Lord Chu Jun, the last 2 words were milord. These 2 words made it clear that Chu Jun was not referring to someone's bloodline legacy, but a person with a high status. Even the people from Class 1 Hall called him milord. What? Yi Qinghan reversed the nomological laws and order. Everything was changing. Lord Chu Jun, we have followed your instructions and are preparing to migrate. What? The bamboo slip finally could not withstand it and collapsed, turning into a wisp of dust. There was no trace of it at all. When Yi Qinghan saw the bamboo slip disappear, he was furious. He cursed, damn it, you can't hold on at the crucial moment. Where are you migrating to? Yes, the most important thing was where they migrated to. However, the location of the location was destroyed before he could restore it. Who is this Lord Chu Jun? Why can he order Elite Hall branch? Why wasn't this bamboo slip sent out when we were victorious? Who did Chu Jun ask Elite Hall's outer hall to cooperate with to migrate to? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. Once he figured this out, he would be able to figure out Class 1 Hall's structure. He would also be able to find the location where the ancient factions migrated. He would definitely be able to catch a big fish by torturing them. We can split into 2 lines to see why this news hasn't spread. First, it's murder. Second, after the Yin Emperor defeated the Yen Emperor, he found another group of people to kill. Could be the Yen ancestor or the Liang Emperor. Let's think, if it's murder, who is most likely to do it? If Yen Zhu or Lord Liang Emperor killed this outer hall member, then there is nothing we can do. It is understandable. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Everyone was at a loss. The people of Crazy Manor definitely did not know about ancient history. Zhu Hai and the others were expelled from the ancient immortal world before the ancient war broke out. It was even more impossible for them to know. They were once again at a deadlock. No one could provide any useful information. At this moment, the district mistress appeared and said bluntly, I know a thing or 2 about primordial history. Back then, in the battle at Ghost Weeping Ridge, the Yen Emperor died in battle. Emperor Liang was held back by another primordial emperor and was too late to provide reinforcements. By the time they arrived at Ghost Weeping Ridge, the Yen Emperor was already dead. He fought with Emperor Yin and defeated him, destroying everything around him. That was the main reason for the formation of Ghost Weeping Ridge and Demon Sealing Cave. The answer you want is right here. He didn't silence them, but rather, Emperor Liang was too late to provide reinforcements. If Lord Liang took action, everything would make sense. However, Chu Jun's identity was still a mystery. Could this Lord Chu Jun be the Hall Master of Elite Hall? Yi Qinghan looked at everyone curiously and asked in a low voice. Everyone nodded. Someone who could command an important outer hall member of Elite Hall, even if he wasn't the Hall Master, he was still one of the 12 emperors. District Mistress, can you help me find out the identity of this Lord Chu Jun? Help me find out even the slightest clue. I want to find out Chu Jun's true identity, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. If you want to find out Chu Jun's identity, I'm afraid you will have to look in the ancient immortal world. The Hall Master of Elite Hall has never appeared in the immortal world, let alone his people, the District Mistress said calmly. Chapter 2801. The ancient immortal world could only be entered from the North Sea after 600 years. Yi Qinghan temporarily gave up on entering the ancient immortal world and continued to search for other clues. However, the information he obtained was all about the deployment and plans of the past and was of no use. After sorting out all the information, Yi Qinghan silently recorded the name Chu Jun in his mind and then stepped into the demon's sealing cave. Thousands of death warriors had died in order to open this passage. The older generation of the crazy manor had contributed greatly, and the elders of the unorthodox path had also contributed. It took thousands of years to open this passage. Now, the killing seals inside had disappeared, forming a deep passage. There were gems everywhere on the stone walls for illumination. Yi Qinghan led the group into the tunnel, and he noticed that the deeper they went, the wider the tunnel became. There were even some ancient houses inside, and Class 1 Hall's branch was located there. The houses had collapsed in the past, and they had been buried for a long time. They had long since lost their majesty and awe-inspiring presence, and had turned into ruins. Yi Qinghan walked deeper. The first and second place of Luo Wuhan's generation had disappeared from here. There must be a way to another place here, possibly the ancient immortal world. The deeper Yi Qinghan went, the darker it became because the crazy manor did not want to go any deeper. There was no value inside, and there were immortal seals that would constantly devour people's lives. There was no need to waste manpower and resources to open this passage. Blue flames shot out from Yi Qinghan's eyes, illuminating the surroundings. He struck out with his palm, and the killing patterns hidden in the dark exploded, rushing in all directions. The entire mountain shook, but when the aftershock hit him, it was immediately dissolved into the power of the Dharma and logos of order, disappearing into nothingness. Now, even a Dao patrol might not be able to hurt him because his anti-order laws had reached a certain level. It would not be an exaggeration to say that half of his body was outside of the 5 elements. Perhaps only the 12 emperors of the ancient age or the hall master of the elite hall could kill him. After hundreds of miles, the passage came to an end. There was a stone wall in front of them, blocking the way. There were no energy fluctuations. Yi Qinghan looked at the stone wall, his eyes penetrating all laws and seeing through all illusions. With a wave of his hand, the stone wall shone brightly. When the emperor ascends to the top, even the heavens will be a man. Flame Emperor. 12 words. They were very simple, but they were filled with dominance and dignity. That determination and confidence were incomparable. There were 2 lines of words left behind by the Yen Emperor. The 2 lines of words were filled with runes. It seemed like a seal. One could enter a place from here, but one could forget about leaving unless one could break the seal left behind by the Yen Emperor. Hiss! The outstanding heroes following behind were all shocked, especially Yen Ao. He clenched his fists tightly. This was the mark left behind by the ancestors of the Yen clan. How grand was this dream? Perhaps even the Yen ancestor wouldn't dare to say such words. When the sovereign ascends to the top, even the heavens will become a human. As someone who wasn't in the Taigu Emperor realm, he had fought against the Yin Emperor, one of the 12 immemorial emperors. Even though he had lost, it was still an honorable defeat. Who else but the Yen Emperor could use at least 3 million men of sacrifice to kill an army of 5 million? Yi Qinghan had always been confident, but this was a step that he had yet to take. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly towards the Flame Emperor. He revered and respected such a person. Whoosh! Zhongquang appeared. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and cut the stone wall in 4 directions, cutting off the 12 words. The power of the anti-order laws severed the outer seal, causing the entire stone wall to fall off. Yi Qinghan actually wanted to keep these 12 words. These 12 words are the goal that I strive for. Let me encourage you. Yi Qinghan retrieved the huge stone block. The spatial fluctuations within it suddenly intensified. This was indeed the passage to the ancient immortal world. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan handed the stone block to Yan Ao and said indifferently, "I'll enter the ancient immortal world first to explore. You guys work together to seal this place." "I'll go with you." Zhu Hai and the rest said in unison. The ancestral land was right on the other side. They all wanted to go and take a look. Yi Qinghan refused. "No, we don't even know what's on the other side. Moreover, we'll be exposed if there are too many people. Don't worry, we'll take back the ancient immortal world sooner or later." No one could refute Yi Qinghan's orders. Kuang Fu was already used to it. Yi Qinghan leaped and disappeared with the help of a spatial node. Then, he waved his hand and sealed this place. Anyone who wanted to enter or leave had to obtain his permission. There was a desolate aura in front of him, filled with vicissitudes and majesty. The path back then had been taken over by thorns and weeds. There were only endless valleys in all directions. There were no obvious buildings or mountains. If they left, it would be difficult to find this place again. Yi Qinghan leaped and rushed to a nearby mountain. He looked into the distance. Apart from the endless blue sky and white clouds, there were no special directional markers. Yi Qinghan looked around. Apart from the similar mountains and forests, there was nothing else. He could only fly higher and higher, trying to find a coordinate to find the way back. However, he underestimated the ancient immortal world. Even the Hall Master of Elite Hall would need many years to traverse the entire ancient immortal world. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to carve some special markings nearby to remind himself. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan entered the mountains and rivers. He hid himself and continued to move deeper. There were no signs of life in the countless miles around him. There was not even a person training. Where did Elite Hall put all the natives of the immortal world that they recruited? Why didn't I see a single person even though I traveled so far? Yi Qinghan avoided countless beasts and birds. He did not want to alarm them, nor did he want to alarm Elite Hall. In the valley where the Taigu Emperor was, every time Yan Yunbei obtained some cultivation insights, he would store them in a fixed place in his sea of consciousness. This Taigu Emperor's staff art was indeed very powerful. It was a heavenly law, and it was very difficult for anyone to surpass it. However, he was not too interested in this Taigu Emperor's staff art. He only wanted to impart it to Chi Tian Monkey King. After all, it was the Taigu Emperor's staff art. If he did not learn it, it would be a waste. After cultivating for thousands of years, he had mastered the staff art. Even if he did not like staff arts, his battle strength had increased to a terrifying level. Once a technique was mastered, all techniques could be mastered. Yan Yunbei had used the Taigu Emperor's staff art to evolve the Taigu Emperor's staff art. However, the weapon was not a staff, but a dagger. After thousands of years, under the nurturing of the Taigu Emperor and devouring countless immortal medicines, Yan Yunbei had stepped into the realm of Dao Patrol. He wanted to proclaim himself as an emperor, but he was stopped by the Taigu Emperor. If you proclaim yourself as an emperor with this level of cultivation, your potential will be exhausted. If you want to reach my level of cultivation, you are still far from being an emperor. Startling Immemorial Emperor admired Yan Yunbei quite a bit. However, Yan Yunbei didn't like to cultivate the rod technique. He had already noticed that every time Yan Yunbei cultivated the startling Emperor's rod technique, Yan Yunbei would evolve into another assassination technique. The dagger was like a heaven-shaking rod that could shake the heaven and earth and kill with one strike. Yan Yunbei was shocked. He did not expect that proclaiming oneself as an emperor would require knowledge. Let me put it this way. The first emperor under the heavens. I don't know if you have heard of this person. His battle strength is close to ours. If he proclaims himself as an emperor, he could even suppress us. However, he did not proclaim himself as an emperor. Instead, he wanted to take another step forward. Once he proclaims himself as an emperor, he would be able to dominate the ancient times and surpass the Yen ancestor. Dominating the ancient times was a very vague phrase. Someone had done it before, and that was the immemorial Yin-Yang immortal emperor. However, he had not fought with the 12 immemorial emperors before. Therefore, no one knew who was stronger between him and the Yen ancestor. Facing the serious expression of the Taigu emperor, Yen Yunbei gave up on proclaiming himself as an emperor because he did not want to stop at Dao Patrol. Your strength should be pretty good. I want you to help me go to Sky Ascension Peak to get the heavenly medicine. Right now. The Taigu emperor stared at Yen Yunbei. His eyes could see through the illusion and even see into Yen Yunbei's heart. If Yen Yunbei dared to play tricks, he would kill him today. Chapter 2802. Jing Tiandi had placed all his hopes on Yen Yunbei. If he didn't help, it would be equivalent to wasting his thousands of years of effort. Yen Yunbei would definitely die miserably. However, Yen Yunbei wasn't an ungrateful person, learning an emperor's technique and saving his life. No matter where Sky Ascension Peak was, it would definitely be very dangerous. If there was a heavenly medicine, it would definitely be controlled by Elite Hall. If he wanted to take it, it would be equivalent to giving his life away. No matter whether he could take it back or not, this debt of gratitude was repaid. Lord Jing Tiandi, please tell me the location and the arrangements around Sky Ascension Peak. I can't guarantee that I can take it back for you. However, if I can't, I will die there to repay Senior's kindness. If I can take it back, I will have repaid Senior's kindness. When we meet again in the future, we will be strangers. Yen Yunbei said in a deep voice. Jing Tiandi shook his head and said in a deep voice, No. If you take it back, you still have to help me do one more thing. Go to Elite Hall and help me save someone. My son, Shuekuan. Because of my bloodline, I don't have many descendants. I only have this one son and 3 grandsons. He can't die. Otherwise, my inheritance will be broken. Yen Yunbei frowned and said bluntly, Senior, with my cultivation, going to Elite Hall is no different from suicide. Don't worry, I will support you. I will help you hold back the Hall Master of Elite Hall. Consider it as doing me a favor. I will repay you in the future. Jing Tiandi requested in a deep voice. Jing Tiandi had no other choice. Back then, the immortal generals had all died in battle. Now, he was alone without any support or helpers. He could only ask Yen Yunbei for help. Yen Yunbei thought for a moment and nodded, I will try my best. Now, tell me the location of Sky Ascension Peak. What exactly is the heavenly medicine? Where is it? What are the defenses around it? I need to know everything clearly. Otherwise, it will be difficult to get it. Jing Tian Taigu Emperor slowly stood up. Half of his body looked extremely terrifying. He was already a little ugly, but now he looked even more ferocious. Heaven Ascension Peak is where we were born. It is only one step away from the heavens, and it is the highest peak in the ancient celestial realm. If you head east, you will see the purple energy coming from the east. Once you pass through the barrier, you will find another world. You can see the Heaven Ascension Peak if you look up. That domain is called the Chaos Heavenly Domain. Everything is still in the beginning, and if you are lucky enough, the archaic emperors will be born again. Once you get there, don't wander around. Go directly to Heaven Ascension Peak. Jing Tian Taigu Emperor stared at Yen Yunbei and continued to remind him in a deep voice. Don't be greedy. You will be punished by the heavens if you take the heavenly medicine. When you take the heavenly medicine, you must kneel and pray to the heavens. Tell the heavens that you are taking the medicine to save the Taigu Emperor and not for your own selfish desires. One is enough. Otherwise, you have no hope of leaving alive. When you take the medicine, don't touch the lightning of heavenly punishment. If there are heavenly beasts, run as fast as you can. Don't even think about fighting them. Heavenly beasts won't leave the chaotic heavenly domain. Don't worry about that. There aren't many of them. As long as you hide well enough, they won't find you. They are all in a coma. Jing Tian Taigu Emperor slowly reminded him. He didn't dare to hide anything from Sky Ascension Peak. If Yen Yunbei failed, he didn't know how many years it would take for him to recover his battle strength. However, he couldn't go out. This was the paradise that he had formed with the last of his strength. Here, he was invincible and could preserve his life. If he went out, he wouldn't be so lucky. Yen Yunbei remembered Jing Tian Emperor's words in his heart. He didn't dare to be careless. "Senior, I'll go first." Yen Yunbei bowed slightly and cupped his fists. Jing Tian Taigu Emperor waved his hand and sent out a wisp of memory energy. He said in a deep voice, "This is the last two profound meanings of the Taigu Emperor staff art. If it's not necessary, don't use it. The last two profound meanings can instantly consume all of your energy source." Yen Yunbei nodded solemnly. He bowed and retreated. Jing Tian Emperor's staff suddenly appeared in front of Yen Yunbei. "I won't mistreat you if you work for me. This Taigu Emperor's staff is yours. Return it to me when you come back," Jing Tian Emperor said in a deep voice. Yen Yunbei put away Jing Tian Emperor's staff and carried it on his back. He held a dagger in his hand and quietly moved through space. He went straight to the top of the cliff. Far away from the top of the cliff, the patrolman was still waiting secretly. Yen Yunbei had been hiding in his paradise under the cliff for thousands of years. The patrolman had been waiting here for thousands of years. He was determined to get Yen Yunbei from Crazy Manor. Yen Yunbei carefully sneaked up. He was no longer the Yen Yunbei of the past. The patrolman hadn't discovered him, but he had discovered him. Yen Yunbei, who had restrained his aura to the extreme, moved along the cliff and avoided the patrolman. He rushed to the east from another direction. The patrolman didn't know and was still waiting there silently. Yi Qinghan shuttled through the void and moved continuously, trying to find Class 1 Hall's location. However, even after searching for many years, he still could not find any signs of human habitation. On the contrary, he also happened to be flying toward the east. The more he flew, the faster he flew, and the further he flew. Finally, Yi Qinghan found the patrolman at the bottom of the cliff. "Patrolman? What's he doing here?" Yi Qinghan looked at the cliff and then at the patrolman. His eyes flashed with killing intent. He waved his hand and a dagger appeared. In terms of assassination, he wasn't inferior to Yen Yunbei. However, his concealment technique was slightly inferior. Nevertheless, he controlled his aura very well. Yi Qinghan landed on the ground and quietly approached the patrolman. The patrolman was an emperor after all. No matter how weak he was still one of the Taigu emperors. His sense of danger was very accurate. The patrolman pulled out his sword and looked around vigilantly. Yi Qinghan was forced to stop. So vigilant, Yi Qinghan was shocked. He quickly changed his position and appeared behind a huge rock. Just as he was about to peek at the patrolman's movements, he suddenly found a mark on the rock. The special mark of Kuang Manor was usually left by the older generation of Kuang Manor subconsciously. Only a dozen or so of the older generation of Kuang Manor knew about this mark. Yi Qinghan often left this mark, sometimes not to remind Kuang Manor what to do, but to tell them that he had been here before. The arrow of the mark pointed to the east. Those who didn't know about marks would see it in the opposite direction. Its brother Yen, Yi Qinghan was sure. In the ancient immortal world, other than Yen Yunbei, no one else knew about this mark. Yi Qinghan quickly retreated. He no longer wanted to assassinate the patrolman. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Yi Qinghan's speed became faster and faster. He rushed to the east. In the blink of an eye, he was dozens of miles away. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless leaves were grabbed by Yi Qinghan and thrown into the void to prevent immortal marks from appearing in front of him. Yi Qinghan was fast, but Yen Yunbei wasn't slow either. He was like an agile monkey shuttling through the void forest. His breathing was steady, and the dagger in his hand could kill the attacking beasts and poisonous creatures in an instant. After 20 years of chasing, Yi Qinghan still couldn't catch up to Yen Yunbei. Damn, this guy is so fast? Yi Qinghan was speechless. He had already used his maximum speed, but he still couldn't catch up. Yi Qinghan descended into the forest, trying to find the mark left behind by Yen Yunbei. However, it was a very small mark and was very difficult to find. If it wasn't for a coincidence, he wouldn't have been able to find it. However, the distance between the two wasn't far. At most, there was a gap of 3 to 5 days. However, the ancient immortal world's laws and logos were dense, and the coverage of the immortal world's consciousness was far inferior to that of the immortal world. On this day, Yan Yunbei seemed to be tired. He stopped in a valley for a while to clean himself up and find some spiritual herbs to replenish his strength. Yan Yunbei, who was born with a sense of danger, found something wrong the next day. Someone is following me. Chapter 2803. It had to be said that Yan Yunbei was too powerful. Yi Qinghan was so far away, yet he could still sense him. Yan Yunbei stopped cultivating. Instead, he pulled out his dagger and hid in the mountains, waiting silently. After waiting for a few days, a figure flew across the sky and appeared in the valley. The image of a dragon and a tiger soared into the sky with an imposing aura. Yan Yunbei looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. Even if the mask could be imitated, the aura could not be imitated. No one could imitate Yi Qinghan's aura. Yizi whoosh. Yan Yunbei appeared in the valley. He looked at Yi Qinghan and said in shock, "Yi, why are you here?" When Yi Qinghan saw Yan Yunbei, he was immediately overjoyed. He took off his mask, waved his hand and hit Yan Yunbei's palm. He scolded, "You bastard, I have been chasing you for several years. I didn't expect you to improve so quickly after 10,000 years. Yan Yunbei smiled and retorted, "You've improved a lot. You're always able to suppress me. I'm almost convinced by you." Yi Qinghan laughed. He saw the shocking sky rod behind Yan Yunbei's back and asked in surprise, "Why is this shocking sky rod in your hands?" Yan Yunbei truthfully told Yi Qinghan everything. After Yi Qinghan heard it, he was immediately overjoyed. It seemed that Class 1 Hall wasn't harmonious under the management of this new Hall Master. "Did you find out who the Hall Master is?" Yi Qinghan asked excitedly. Yan Yunbei shook his head and replied, "Taigu Emperor Jing Tian is unwilling to say. He doesn't seem to know much about Class 1 Hall's Hall Master. However, what is certain is that the 12 Taigu Emperors and the 6 gods obeyed the orders of the new Hall Master because of the primordial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor's orders. Jing Tian is also not sure if the encirclement of the Yen clan is the new Hall Master's idea or the primordial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperors." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and sighed. "I hope that the primordial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor did not make a move. This matter should come to an end with the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall. It's time to put an end to it." Yan Yunbei also nodded silently. Fighting against an immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Monarch was a very strange thing to do. You might not be able to fight against that kind of person for the rest of your life. Even if your cultivation broke through the heavens, you might still be defeated by him. "Are you really planning to go to Heaven Ascension Peak?" Yi Qinghan looked at Yan Yunbei. Listening to his words, Sky Ascension Peak was definitely a place with a slim chance of survival. If one went there, they might not be able to return. Yan Yunbei nodded and said, "I owe him my life. If it wasn't for him back then, I would have been captured by the Dao Patrol. Plus, he taught me the Heavenly Emperor's staff art. I can't bear to do this. You should go back first. I'll go alone to get the heavenly medicine." Life and death are up to fate. Success and failure are up to the heavens. No. Since I've chased you all the way here, I definitely can't let you take the risk alone. Besides, I'm confident that I can come out alive. It just so happens that I want to see what the so-called chaotic heavenly domain is like. I also want to see the heavens and the heavenly medicine. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Since he was very weak, Yi Qinghan had always been very curious. The frequency of him seeking death was very fast. He always wanted to figure out the things he was curious about. Yan Yunbei looked at Yi Qinghan's determined expression and did not refuse. In fact, he also understood that Yi Qinghan was afraid that he would not be able to come back alive if he took the risk alone. What? Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei had a tacit understanding and lightly punched each other. "Then let's go to Sky Ascension Peak to take a look. Actually, I'm also curious about the feeling of reaching Sky Ascension Peak. I also want to see what the place where the 12 emperors and 6 master gods were born is like. Yan Yunbei said with a smile. Ha, Yi Qinghan laughed. Men with ambition would always be motivated. What they were curious about was not boring things, but things that were extreme. The two rested in the valley for a few days. Then, they quickly rushed into the void and headed east. With the two of them working together, their speed was even faster. They had their own roles to play in scouting and defense. There was no need to worry about the sudden attack of powerful primordial monsters. Shoo, 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 shoo. The two of them sped for more than 3,000 years, but they still didn't see any purple chi coming from the east. It had to be said that this supreme ancient immortal realm was truly vast and majestic. They cultivated as they hurried along. With the help of the laws and order here, they could see the vicissitudes of the world. Their state of mind was slowly changing. Another 800 years passed, and the two of them increased their speed to the extreme. There seemed to be no primordial killing formations here anymore. There were even some ancient tribes here, but they were sparsely populated. They should be from the primordial era, and had not had any contact with the outside world for countless years. This place did not experience the flames of war in the past, but there were very few people who could come to this border area. In addition, there were many ferocious beasts, so the survival rate was not high. Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei only observed from the outside world for a period of time. They did not disturb the living habits of these ancient people. Instead, they continued to head east. After about 3 years, they finally saw the purple chi coming from the east. It spread to the end of the east. In front of them was a towering mountain with white clouds, forming a natural barrier. Yan Yunbei was overjoyed. Barrier! You'll be able to see Sky Ascension Peak after passing through it. Yi Qinghan also exhaled a turbid breath. He really did not expect the primordial immortal world to be so huge. It took them 4,000 years just to rush from one place to the east. This was also because their cultivation level was close to the Taigu emperors. If it was someone else, they might not be able to reach here even if they sacrificed their lives. I really can't imagine the vastness and magnificence of the primordial immortal world. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He did not know how long it would take to reach the west from the valley where Jing Tiandi was. However, he was sure that it would take at least 10,000 years to go through the east and west. Yan Yunbei sighed. The universe is boundless. The stronger the realm, the more insignificant you feel. There is always a sky beyond a sky, and a person beyond a person. Where is the limit? No one knows. I'm afraid only Yen Zhu and the primordial Yin-Yang Emperor know. Ancestor realm. Yen Zhu was a half-ancestor. What was the primordial Yin-Yang Emperor's level? Probably only he himself knew. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. He sat cross-legged at the foot of the mountain in the east and breathed in the purple qi, calming himself down from the hardships of traveling for the past 4,000 years. Yan Yunbei did not choose to enter the primal chaos heavenly domain. Even the Taigu Emperor was cautious of this place. If they entered it recklessly, they would definitely die. The 12 emperors of the primordial immortal world and the 6 master gods rarely entered the primal chaos heavenly domain after their birth. Normally, they would only come back once every epoch to offer sacrifices to the heavens. However, after the primordial war, no one came here to offer sacrifices to the heavens. Since then, no Taigu emperor was born in the primal chaos heavenly domain. Relying on cultivation, it was already very good to reach the Tao patrol level. After all, there were too few people like Yen Emperor. Yi Qinghan did not dare to say that he could reach Yen Emperor's level in the future and become the #1 emperor in the world, an existence that even the Taigu Emperor acknowledged. The two rested here for about half a month. Their bodies were filled with energy once again. Only then did they get up and rush towards the barrier. After stepping through the barrier, they entered a brand new domain. A domain that had never appeared in the mortal world. Other than the Taigu Emperor, no one else had come here before. Chapter 2804. Primal Chaos Heavenly Domain was a brand new name. Only a handful of people knew about it. Not to mention ancient gods and ancient immortals, even Dao patrollers didn't know about it. If they hadn't met the Taigu Emperor, Yan Yunbei wouldn't have known about it, and Yi Qinghan wouldn't have known about it either. Primal Chaos Heavenly Domain was the place where the 12 emperors and 6 overgods were born. Of course, in essence, this place didn't only give birth to these 18 people. As for who else was born, perhaps only those who stood at the top would know. Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei rushed towards the barrier. In the eyes of many people, the path to that place was dead, but the two didn't hesitate. Boom! Hua! The two directly smashed the void node and passed through the barrier. The space-time in front of them changed greatly. Everything was in its original state, and the most primitive state appeared in front of them. The origin of lightning was densely packed, and the spirit chi was in its initial state. This place controlled the entire universe and could pass through any place. The heavenly tribulation and lightning tribulation would set off from here and could reach every corner of the universe in an instant. A towering mountain soared into the sky from the void until it couldn't be seen. The mountain had already touched the end of the sky. Lofty, heavy, majestic, and magnificent. Hiss! Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei looked at each other and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Their eyes were filled with shock. This primal chaos heavenly domain was too big. Although there was no land, the buoyancy was very strong. Even those who didn't cultivate could float stably here, but there was no one here. Some strange treasured medicines were floating in the heavenly domain. They were surrounded by lightning, but the lightning wouldn't harm them. However, if someone with ambition touched them, not even dregs would be left. These weren't heavenly medicines. According to the Heavenly Emperor, those on Sky Ascension Peak were heavenly medicines. They could even heal his injuries. However, although these weren't heavenly medicines, they could directly restore the vitality of most people. When the big shots' lives were nearing their end, they could instantly defy the heavens and change their fate. Some celestial bodies floated about in the chaos celestial domain. The tiny atoms of the celestial bodies were constantly distorted and enlarged, forming small celestial bodies. They devoured each other and expanded, eventually forming a gigantic celestial body. When they reached a certain level of celestial body, they would leave the chaos celestial domain and enter the vast universe. It was not easy to form the Taigu Emperor here. It was purely a coincidence. Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei were stunned by the evolution in front of them. This kind of evolution was the purest and most primitive in the world. The Taigu Emperor was the purest and most primitive gathering of primal chaos energy. However, he had flesh and blood and could be inherited. This was definitely not something that could be set up by humans. Regardless of whether it was Zhu En or the Taigu Emperor, none of them could set up such an enormous origin heaven domain. Naturally, its power was boundless. Yi Qinghan scanned the surroundings. Everywhere was the beginning of primordial chaos, endless and boundless. He did not find any so-called heavenly beasts. Let's enter the Sky Ascension Peak. Yi Qinghan put on his mask and kept his long blade. At this moment, any weapon would be useless. If they wanted to take the heavenly medicine out of here, they would have to rely on luck. Without luck, they would not be able to take the heavenly medicine away even if it was right in front of them. Yan Yunbei took a deep breath and carried the heaven-shocking rod on his back. This emperor's rod was also the most primitive substance. It would not trigger any mutation in this place and would instead protect him. Let's go, Yan Yunbei said in a deep voice. The two joined hands and stood back to back, guarding all directions. Their eyes were emitting golden light. Even the slightest change could not escape their eyes. There was no sun, no moonlight, and no stars in this place. However, there was light radiating in all directions, allowing them to see very far. Bush, 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 bush. The two rushed towards the Sky Ascension Peak. After traveling for a few days, the Sky Ascension Peak that was originally in front of them was still in front of them. However, they could not reach the foot of the mountain no matter how hard they tried. It was as if the Sky Ascension Peak would take a step back whenever they took a step forward. It was too far away. Moreover, this was the Sky Ascension Peak. Boosh, boom. When the initial lightning struck down from the Sky Ascension Peak, A huge star would appear out of nowhere. There were no rules, including the lightning and the location of the lightning. It was completely random. The lightning was extremely fast as it struck down from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it was above their heads. A fatal crisis shrouded their bodies. The two of them split up and dodged. They shuttled through the chaotic sky of the heaven domain. Just as they landed, a huge star appeared. It was about a few hundred feet long. That star produced endless energy. Once it exploded, it would be enough to destroy a small star. If this kind of lightning struck a person's body, they would not be able to withstand the energy. Their flesh and blood would definitely explode and be torn apart. The two of them were drenched in cold sweat. After escaping from death, they looked at each other and became even more vigilant. However, at this moment, a heavenly beast appeared in front of them. It was the chaotic heavenly tiger. It had actually swallowed a star. The star that contained endless energy was quickly digested in its body. It was unimaginable how powerful a heavenly beast was. Yi Qinghan touched the newly born star. He could feel the energy that was produced due to the atomic change. It was equivalent to his peak attack. However, it was eaten by a heavenly beast when it was born. It was imaginable that these heavenly beasts could not be killed by humans. Heavenly beasts use initial energy as their food. I'm afraid the flesh and blood of humans is something that they are more interested in, Yi Qinghan said softly. Yan Yunbei nodded. He hid behind the star and waited silently for the heavenly beast to leave. However, at this moment, the huge chaotic heavenly tiger walked toward them. It was obvious that it had taken a fancy to this star. Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei immediately had goosebumps all over their bodies. There was no place to hide in this spacious chaotic heavenly domain. Even if there were small stars, they were food for the heavenly tiger. There was no way to retreat. Quick, think of something. There's no time, Yan Yunbei said hastily in a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan shone brightly. He hid behind the star and looked at the chaotic heavenly tiger. It was not far away from them. It was not much different from an ordinary giant tiger. However, it was too majestic. The aura of chaos filled the air. It seemed to be more intelligent. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to drag Yi Xiaosa and Supremacy Yi out. Go, lure it away, Yi Qinghan said softly. Supremacy Yi was not stupid. He immediately fled back into Yi Qinghan's bloodline, leaving Yi Xiaosa dumbfounded. The chaotic heavenly beast was the only existence that he did not want to devour so far. Yi Xiaosa twisted his body and quickly changed back to his original form. He turned into a huge heavenly dragon. His fangs pierced through the star as if warning the chaotic heavenly tiger that it was its food. There were definitely many ferocious beasts in the heavenly domain. Therefore, the moment Yi Xiaosa appeared, the chaotic heavenly tiger was stunned. Then, it went into an attacking posture. It was extremely ferocious. Yi Xiaosa's teeth were about to be broken by the endless energy in the star. He quickly turned into a human. He held the stone with both hands and crawled forward. The powerful Yi Xiaosa had surrendered. Yi Qinghan looked at Yi Xiaosa's flattering actions and was speechless. The chaotic heavenly tiger was stunned. Clearly, this was the first time it had seen such a heavenly beast. Chapter 2805. This was the first time the chaotic heavenly tiger had seen a heavenly beast transform into a human. Of course, Yi Xiaosa wasn't a chaotic heavenly beast, but he had devoured the giant spirit emperor's corpse and had the aura of a chaotic heavenly beast. You're the boss. You can devour this energy. Yi Xiaosa raised the star and walked to the chaotic heavenly tiger in a servile manner. He handed it over to the chaotic heavenly tiger respectfully. You're the boss. You can have it. I'll stroke your fur. Yi Xiaosa handed the small celestial body to the primal chaos heavenly tiger. He bowed and stroked the huge primal chaos heavenly tiger's fur in a flattering manner. He did not expect the primal chaos heavenly tiger to enjoy it. As it swallowed the celestial body, it lay beside Yi Xiaosa. Sometimes, it would even twist its body so that Yi Xiaosa could stroke its fur. The chaotic heavenly tiger was as docile as a cat. The most terrifying thing was that the vicious multicolored snake was like a slave. It didn't look sinister at all. Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei were completely speechless. They took the opportunity while the chaotic heavenly tiger was resting and enjoying itself to dash into the distance. Swish, swish. Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei increased their speed and dodged constantly. They tried their best to avoid places with many stars. Heavenly beasts spent most of their time in a state of deep sleep. However, once they woke up, they would devour stars. Astral bodies were their food. Relying on astral bodies to shield them was akin to seeking death. After clearing the area, the two of them didn't encounter any more heavenly beasts. Occasionally, they would see a sleeping heavenly beast. These chaotic heavenly beasts had strange shapes. Many of them had never been seen before. Some were huge and ferocious while some looked cute. However, the two of them didn't see these heavenly beasts as cute. Any one of them could cause chaos. Swish, 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 swish. As time passed, the two of them forgot the concept of time. Finally, they reached the foot of Sky Ascension Peak when they were at their most exhausted. Looking at the endless Sky Ascension Peak, they knew they couldn't fly up. They could only climb up step by step. Even Yi Qinghan, who had a strong physical body, felt powerless. Let's go. The two of them gritted their teeth. If they didn't go all out now, their earlier efforts would be wasted. Swish, swish, swish. Following some narrow paths, Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei rushed upwards like agile monkeys. Their figures were extremely fast and they even had to dodge some terrifying lightning bolts. Other than the 12 immemorial emperors and other existences that were born here, only these two would be so crazy. Even if there were heavenly medicines above, no one would dare to take them. The Heaven Ascension Peak was countless zhang high, and it was not something that could be climbed by human strength. It was impossible to fly, and there was also the interference of lightning. There were even sleeping heavenly beasts everywhere. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei were already exhausted. At this moment, they were breathing heavily. They had to rely on their hands and feet to climb up. The Dharma and order here seemed to be different from the Dharma and order outside. Yi Qinghan was more sensitive to the laws of order. If the laws of order in the outside world were strict and instantaneous, then this place was more chaotic. Everything was in the initial state of chaos, and what he cultivated was completely reversed. Once they ascended Sky Ascension Peak, the 12 emperors of the immemorial age would probably have to behave themselves and treat this place with respect. After climbing for tens of thousands of zhang, the clouds were faintly discernible. When they looked up, there were still countless zhang above the Heaven Ascension Peak. Yi Qinghan could still hold on, but Yen Yunbei couldn't. He stood in a very small area, holding on to a fulcrum. He couldn't even breathe, and his face was pale. The aura from above was getting stronger, but the real heavenly medicine had yet to appear. Yi Qinghan looked at Yen Yunbei and asked, "Brother Yen, can you still go up?" Yen Yunbei was sweating profusely, and his legs were trembling. Stamina was one thing, but the heavenly aura was too strong. This was the scariest thing. Thus, if I can't even ascend the Heaven Ascension Peak, how can I be a hero in the future? Yen Yunbei replied firmly. This time, it wasn't just about ascending to the heavens to retrieve the medicine, but also to strengthen his will to pursue the Tao. He couldn't stop, or the probability of death would be very high. Come, I'll pull you for a while. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand firmly. Although he was also very tired, he couldn't give up on Yen Yunbei. Yen Yunbei shook his head and took a deep breath. His chest was hurting. I'll do it myself. I believe I can do it. Yen Yunbei was very determined. With every step he took, his understanding of the shocking emperor's staff art would become stronger. This Tao wasn't what he wanted, but he could understand the piercing Tao better through the emperor's staff art. The more thorough his understanding of the emperor's staff art was, the more perfect his piercing Tao would be. Hua! The two broke through their limits and faced the rolling heavenly aura. Their black hair fluttered, and their eyes were filled with determination. 1 step, 2 steps. The path to the heavens was right under their feet. To stop at the last moment was a humiliation for martial cultivators. No one's heart to pursue the Tao was more determined than the two in front of them. Hua hua hua. Woo woo woo. Hua hua hua. Ka ka ka. The heavenly aura pressed down, and astral winds howled. Lightning struck, and thunder appeared out of nowhere. There were a few times when it exploded beside the two, and they almost fell out of the chaotic heavenly domain. Once they fell, their souls and bodies would be destroyed, and they would fall into endless darkness. Boom! Another clap of thunder exploded beside Yen Yunbei. The fulcrum in his hand was broken and his body fell back involuntarily. What? Yi Qinghan was quick to react. He grabbed Yen Yunbei's struggling right hand and pulled him back to the sky ascension peak. Yen Yunbei would have died if he was just a few millimeters away. Yen Yunbei's eyes were filled with death aura. His eyes were red, and the black veins on his body were very obvious. No, we can't leave the mountain in the sky. Yen Yunbei instantly understood that no one could survive in the sky above. Yi Qinghan also had lingering fears. He looked at the boundless void and the clouds. There was no aura of death, but he did not expect that it would be so dangerous once they left the mountain. Slowly, the two slowed down a lot. At this moment, the two of them felt like years. They did not know how long they had spent, but they finally reached the middle of the mountain. The heavenly herbs were protected by purple lightning, and waves of lightning spread out. If they wanted to take the heavenly herbs, they would have to endure the lightning strikes and face the danger of death. When they reached the middle of the mountain, there were no more heavenly beasts. There were only the so-called heavenly herbs. There were not many of them, and there was only a stalk of 100 feet. Each stalk contained more energy than the previous one. However, when they reached the middle of the mountain, stairs began to appear on the road. It was obvious that the Taigu Emperor had opened it. Yi Qinghan slowly stepped on the first step. His body was obviously heavy, as if he was carrying a huge star on his shoulders. No, it was as if the entire universe was on his shoulders. Thud boom. Bang. Yi Qinghan stepped on the second step. His legs were heavy, and he was almost forced to kneel. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He could not even lift his head. The laws of order in his body became chaotic, and his body was about to collapse. Blood flowed out involuntarily, dyeing his battle robe red. Boom! The third step. Each step was more terrifying than the previous one. Bang! Yi Qinghan was forced to kneel on the stone step. His proud head was crushed and almost stuck to the step. His mind was buzzing nonstop, as if countless wills were ordering him to kneel. Huff! Yi Qinghan supported himself on the stone step with both hands. His breathing was rapid, and his heart was about to explode. The path to heaven could only be climbed up to this point. One more step and he would die. The path to heaven was long, and those who came must stop. Chapter 2806. The path of heaven was long and the end point was only halfway. The halfway point was the end point for everyone except for the Taigu Emperor. When Yi Qinghan knelt down, the heaven's might gradually dissipated. The pressure on his shoulders also gradually dissipated. When he wanted to stand up again, the pressure gathered again. Boom! Yen Yunbei also took a step forward. His legs were shaking. When he stepped on the second step, he was also forced to kneel on the ground. Yen Yunbei was not as arrogant as Yi Qinghan. He put his palms together and was sincere and respectful. He did not want to go against heaven. He only wanted to ask heaven why it allowed the Taigu Emperor to kill people. Whoosh! Yen Yunbei walked forward while kneeling. He moved up the stairs step by step. Yi Qinghan's expression changed slightly. He reached out and pulled Yen Yunbei, wanting him to not be so humble. Yen Yunbei smiled bitterly and said hoarsely, "Man does not fight with heaven. I have no intention to go against heaven. This time, I came here sincerely to ask for medicine. There is no need to trouble me." "It will destroy you," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Yen Yunbei's eyes flashed. He replied firmly, "My heart is Tao. It will not change because of this kneel." Whoosh! Yen Yunbei no longer felt any pressure. He walked forward and prayed sincerely. "I came for the ancient Emperor Jing Tian. I have no intention to go against heaven. I do not want to go against heaven. I only want a heaven medicine to save the Emperor Jing Tian. I hope heaven will grant me the medicine. Yan Yunbei put his palms together. Because he knelt, his kneecaps were broken. Blood dyed the stone steps red. However, it did not stop him from asking for medicine. Boom. Roar! Yi Qinghan propped himself up with both hands and slowly stood up. The image of the dragon and tiger seemed to want to defy the heavens and straighten Yi Qinghan's body. He was like a lone poplar tree that stood proudly on the dome and could touch the heavens with a wave of his hand. Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped on the 4th step and followed Yan Yunbei to the top. On the 9th step, the pressure reached its peak. It almost crushed Yi Qinghan's skull. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. Bang! On the 10th step, the pressure suddenly decreased, just like on the 1st step. Heaven never seals off all paths. 9 extremes, break through the extremes and be reborn. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, as if he understood the will of the heavens. The heavens had no evil intentions. The ones who had evil intentions were the sons of the heavens, the Taigu Emperor. This time, Yi Qinghan put his palms together and bowed deeply. What was this heaven? Perhaps it was an inanimate object. It was the Heaven Ascension Peak and the Primal Chaos Heavenly Domain. However, it had the ability to give birth to living creatures. This was a mysterious natural reaction. Heaven was nature, and nothing was impossible. All living things were the children of heaven, and should be equal. However, with different bloodlines, their strength was also different. Thus, those who were more powerful thought they were superior and judged everything. Tap, tap, tap. After experiencing the first wave of pressure, Yi Qinghan gradually adapted to it. He bent down and reached out to pull Yan Yunbei up. He said bluntly, "It's not God who wants you to kneel. It's the order of the power here. If you can withstand the first wave, the second wave will be much better." The two supported each other and ascended step by step. Although the path to the heavens was painful, it was endless fun. With each step, they understood nature and the heavens more thoroughly. When they almost reached the peak, the yin and yang auras here were peaceful. The pressure dissipated, as if the two had merged with the Heaven Ascension Peak. Immemorial yin-yang. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He was absolutely sure that the immemorial yin-yang immortal emperor had been here and might have been born here. The key was that he could completely change the Heaven Ascension Peak and change the laws and principles here. The surrounding heavenly medicines had increased a little. They were all protected by the laws and principles of yin and yang. The power of yin and yang was peaceful. Without the decree of the immemorial yin-yang immortal emperor, it would be difficult to take the heavenly medicines here. The peak of the Heaven Ascension Peak was right in front of them. It was a large platform that was not very sharp. There were some stone tablets on it, scattered in an orderly manner. There were some words carved on them. Yi Qinghan pulled Yan Yunbei and successfully stepped onto the peak. The dome was within reach. However, the first thing they saw were the stone tablets. Giant Spirit Emperor, Firmament Emperor, Time Master God, Shocking Sky Emperor. 22 stone tablets represented 22 identities. They were all people of noble status. The immemorial yin-yang immortal emperor was the last one. He was the first Taigu emperor to be born. However, there was another stone tablet in front of the immemorial yin-yang immortal emperor's stone tablet. The name carved on it made Yi Qinghan's hair stand on end. Chu Shiliang. Chu Shiliang did not cultivate. Is actually one of the Taigu emperors. Yi Qinghan felt his face sour and stinging. His brain was like paste. He could not imagine that Chu Shiliang was actually one of the Taigu emperors. He actually did not join forces with the other Taigu emperors to eliminate the Yen tribe. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed as he carefully observed the names on the stone tablets. The techniques that each of them was proficient in were carved on it. Chu Shiliang, wielder of the Prediction Sword Emperor technique. There was no more information, only this sentence. The others were about the same. None of them are called Chu Jun. Yi Qinghan looked around but couldn't find anyone called Chu Jun. Either this person was personally groomed by the primordial yin-yang immortal emperor, Or this Chu Jun was the successor of a primordial emperor like what Li Ying had said, just like the crown prince. Whoosh! At this moment, a stone tablet slowly grew from the top of Sky Ascension Peak. It rose step by step, and some words began to appear on the tablet. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Everything was restless. Divine light covered the chaotic heavenly domain from the dome. Bolts of lightning rushed from the waist of the mountain to the heavenly domain. Not good. A Taigu emperor has been born. Let's go, Yi Qinghan immediately understood. If they did not leave now, they would not have another chance. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan was practically dragging Yan Yunbei down. There was no way to take the heavenly medicines in the surroundings. There was too much immemorial yin-yang aura enveloping them. Even if their cultivation was doubled, they would not be able to break through it. When they were about to reach the waist of the mountain, Yi Qinghan saw a heavenly medicine appearing along with the waves of light. There would always be a moment when it was not enveloped. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan did not even think. He directly waved his hand and grabbed the heavenly medicine. When his hand came into contact with the lightning energy outside, the vitality on the surface of his skin was destroyed. His hand went numb, and he threw it to Yan Yunbei. Yan Yunbei immediately held the heavenly medicine above his head and prayed sincerely, "This junior has obeyed the orders of the immemorial yin-yang immortal emperor to come and take the heavenly medicine to save a life." The lightning struck Yan Yunbei's head, but it actually stopped. It was too strange. These lightning bolts seemed to have consciousness and could be completely controlled. Yi Qinghan did not care about the order here. He could already fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. Why would he care about whether the lightning could be controlled or not? As the saying went, there was always someone better. There were many strange things. He could not be a frog in a well. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan dragged Yan Yunbei down the waist of the mountain. It was difficult to come and difficult to leave because there was not much time left. Countless lightning bolts were heading in one direction. Their purpose was very clear. It was to give birth to the Taigu Emperor. They had to leave the heaven region before the Taigu Emperor was born. Otherwise, they did not know what kind of trouble they would cause. A few months later, Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei rushed from the top of the mountain to the foot of Sky Ascension Peak. At this moment, the colorful snake had actually coaxed the chaotic celestial tiger into a deep sleep. "Let's go," Yi Qinghan lowered his voice and rushed into the void. With a wave of his hand, Yi Qinghan was taken away. The three of them seized the air and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 2807. In the primal chaos heavenly domain, lightning struck the same place at the same time, causing chaos to surge and order to distort. A heavenly medicine rushed out from the Sky Ascension Peak. The atoms in the chaos were shattered, twisted, and deformed by the lightning. After countless cycles, they were reconstructed into a physical body. With the heavenly medicine as a guide, they turned into bloodline and soul. A new Taigu Emperor was about to be born. The process of creating a Taigu Emperor was slow. The reason why the Taigu Emperor was so strong was because he had to endure countless lightning strikes here. After being reconstructed in the primal chaos heavenly domain and being guided by the heavenly medicine, it would be strange if he was not heaven-defying. As for why a new Taigu Emperor was born, it might be a coincidence or because nature felt that the ancient immortal world needed to be adjusted again. That was why this Taigu Emperor was born. After countless years, a huge ancient emperor appeared in the primal chaos heavenly domain. Even if lightning struck him again, it could not break his skin. This Taigu Emperor was similar to the giant spirit emperor and the shocking sky emperor. He was very ugly, with thick skin and eyes as sharp as lightning. There was a strange mark on his forehead. When it flashed, it could distort the void. Even small stars could be sucked into it. As long as a star was sucked into the mark, it would be shattered into powder. The energy born inside would be devoured and turned into his own. He was not like the shocking sky emperor or the giant spirit emperor, who had their own Taigu Emperor weapon. That mark was his most powerful weapon. This mark could only bring destruction. It could only be called the destruction mark. The newly born Taigu Emperor's eyes were not as pure as a newborn's. Instead, they were filled with killing and destruction. Everything was for destruction. He could not understand why the primal chaos heavenly domain would give birth to a Taigu emperor. This was to destroy the Yen clan's hope. At the top of the Sky Ascension Peak, the stone tablet had been completed. There were a few words carved on it. Chu Su, the former Taigu emperor, controls the initial mark. Before Chu Su, before Genesis, wasn't the primal chaos heavenly domain like this? Immemorial monarch Chu Su waved his hand, and lightning gathered and bombarded the primal chaos heavenly domain. Countless atoms underwent a qualitative change, forming celestial bodies. Then, the celestial bodies twisted and fused into a spear, the spear of destruction. The destruction spear was bathed in lightning, and its impurities were cleansed. The destruction spear's materials were all chaos. Destruction. Taigu emperors. It was completely indestructible. Only people like Yen Zhu could destroy the Taigu weapon spirit. Whoosh! A black heavenly medicine flew through the air and entered the destruction spear. The spear became even more soul-stealing, as though there was a pair of eyes staring at the chaos heavenly domain. There was no will in the chaos celestial domain. Everything was regulated by nature. Where there was life, there would be destruction. If there was a power that defied the laws of order, there would definitely be an Archean emperor who could restrain it. This Archean emperor clearly wasn't targeting the Yen clan, but Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan didn't know that the Taigu emperor was here for him, but he more or less knew that his entry into the primal chaos heavenly domain had triggered the primal chaos heavenly domain's natural adjustment. It was just a matter of when. At this time, Yi Qinghan was running away with Yen Yunbei. Yi Qinghan called out Gracious Yi until he was completely exhausted. He had Gracious Yi transform into his original form and run away with the two of them. Roared at Yi Qinghan's body twisted and transformed into a dragon. He soared into the sky and roared. His speed was so fast that he was even faster than a patrol. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. All laws were forced to retreat and space-time collapsed. No laws and principles of order could stop its advance. Yi Qinghan and the others didn't dare to rest. They had to get as far away as possible before the Taigu emperor was born. They ran for more than 3,000 years. Yi Qinghan, Yen Yunbei, and the colorful snake took turns to run. They were running for their lives, not for a stroll. How can it be so coincidental that the Taigu emperor is about to be born as soon as we arrive? Yen Yunbei was lying on Yi Qinghan's body. He was very tired, but he still couldn't understand. It was too much of a coincidence. I suspect it's the orders set up by the primordial yin-yang immortal emperor. Once I reach the top, a special Taigu emperor will come to deal with me. Yi Qinghan was puzzled. He could only think of the worst-case scenario. Yen Yunbei frowned. He didn't understand. If the primordial yin-yang immortal emperor was involved, why didn't he do it himself? Why would an existence that ruled over the ancient times care about an alien planet like Yi Qinghan? Even if he could be reborn, he would still be able to kill Yi Qinghan. Since the primordial yin-yang immortal emperor didn't show up, everything was very confusing. No one knew what was going on. Maybe he had captured the hall master of the elite hall. However, even the Yen clan didn't dare to show up. It was obvious that the hall master of the elite hall was not easy to deal with. It took them more than 4,000 years to get here, but it only took them 3,300 years to get back. They had saved nearly 1,000 years. It seemed that in order to escape, the three of them had created a miracle. Outside the cliff where the Taigu emperor was, the patrol had already left. They had waited here for more than 13,000 years in vain. They didn't even see the shadow of the Taigu emperor, so they could only leave dispiritedly. Whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei leaped into the sky and entered the heavenly grotto through the mist. The surroundings were in a mess. A huge body was completely destroyed, and only half of the head was left. However, after a preliminary examination, this person was Jing Tiandi. The shocking Sky Emperor was dead. Yi Qinghan and Yen Yunbei sucked in a breath of cold air. They looked at the shocking Sky Emperor who was nailed to the mountain and couldn't speak for a long time. It was impossible for the patrol to be the shocking Taigu Emperor's opponent. The identity of the attacker was obvious. The elite hall is so ruthless. They even killed the shocking Sky Emperor. Yan Yunbei felt his blood run cold. He had goosebumps all over his body. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but look at the sky. He felt that the danger was getting closer and closer. We can't stay here for long. Let's leave first, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Yan Yunbei looked at the heavenly medicine in his hand and took a deep breath. He bowed to Jing Tiandi and said in a low voice, Junior was late and caused Senior's death. I feel very guilty. If there is a chance, I will definitely help you rescue your son from Class 1 Hall. Sigh? Yi Qinghan sighed helplessly. It was not easy for Jing Tiandi to rebel, but he died before he could recover from his injuries. Moreover, he died in such a tragic manner. His head was missing, and the valley was in a mess. It seemed that he had struggled for a while before he died. Unfortunately, he was already half crippled, so how could he fight against the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall? One emperor appeared and one emperor fell. The outside world didn't know about this shocking change. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei flew away. Yi Qinghan wanted to devour the shocking Sky Emperor, but he was stopped by Yi Qinghan. However, not long after the two left, a masked youth walked out from the depths of the paradise. It was the patrol who had disappeared for a long time. The patrol held his sword and snorted, Yi Qinghan, Yan Yunbei. Both of you are in the ancient immortal world. Chapter 2808. The patrol officer had been hiding here for a long time, seemingly waiting for Yi Qinghan's return. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to follow him, so he didn't act rashly. After the two left the cliff, his figure flashed and he soared into the sky, following them from afar. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was leading Yan Yunbei towards the demon ceiling cave and the node of the ancient immortal world. The patrol officer's understanding of the ancient immortal world was much better than Yi Qinghan's. According to Yi Qinghan's route, he quickly guessed where they were going, or at least where they would pass by. Whoosh! Whoosh! The patrol officer disappeared and went straight into the distance. At the entrance of Class 1 Hall's Heavenly Hall, in addition to the previous Imperial Weapon Inheritors, the current generation of Imperial Weapon Inheritors had also matured. For tens of thousands of years, the Imperial Weapon Inheritors had been trained by Class 1 Hall like a devil. Now, their combat strength had increased by many folds. Many young Supremes gathered at the entrance of the Heavenly Hall and fought with each other. The young Imperial Weapon Inheritors fought with the older generation of Imperial Weapon Inheritors, and the Imperial Weapon Inheritors fought with the Imperial Weapon Inheritors without mercy. Yi Tong and Lin Mo, the two young Imperial Weapon Inheritors, supported the younger generation. They often fought with the previous generation of Imperial Weapon Inheritors until the end, gradually closing the gap between the young Imperial Weapon Inheritors and the previous generation of Supremes. They became the soul of the new generation of Imperial Weapon Inheritors. However, at this moment, Lin Mo and Yi Tong didn't seem to know each other anymore. When they were very young, they were sent to different cities and entered Class 1 Hall. Since then, the two didn't communicate with each other. After so many years, they barely remembered each other. Moreover, the imprint in their hearts wasn't each other, but the belief of Kuang Fu. They hypnotized themselves all year round that they were the only ones in the ancient immortal world, and no one else had infiltrated Class 1 Hall. The two appreciated each other, but they didn't trust each other in their hearts. At some point, they even wanted to kill each other because they didn't want to leave such an expert for Class 1 Hall. However, the two didn't have many chances to interact, or they would have killed each other long ago. The Sword and Saber Emperors of the previous generation were both killed by Yi Qinghan, but they were replaced by the previous generation. However, they still couldn't beat the new generation of Yi Tong and Lin Mo. Whoosh! A messenger light soared into the sky, and hundreds of elites rushed out of Class 1 Hall's Heavenly Hall. They were the strongest of the younger generation, and all of them wore masks. Those without masks did not have the right to gather here. Whoosh! 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 Yi Tong and Lin Mo also quickly rushed to the entrance of the hall and stood side by side. They glanced at each other from the corners of their eyes and understood that they had a very important mission to carry out. Soon, Dao Patroller arrived with his sword in hand. He saw Class 1 Hall's elites rushing out like bamboo shoots after a rain, especially Saber Emperor Yi Tong and Sword Emperor Lin Mo. Ever since Yi Tong fought against Yan Yunbei, Dao Patroller trusted him a lot. Class 1 Hall's Hall Masters seemed to have specially nurtured Dao Patrollers, and their fighting prowess had increased by leaps and bounds, or else, they would not have been able to win against Yi Tong and Lin Mo. Everyone, get ready and follow me. Our destination is Yunling Basin. Our targets are Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei. Our final goal is to kill Yan Yunbei and crush Yi Qinghan's Taoist heart. We can only win this battle. Defeat is not an option. Dao Patroller swept his gaze over the crowd, and in the end he fixed his gaze on Lin Mo, Yi Tong, and a few elites of the older generation. He said in a deep voice, Saber Emperor, Sword Emperor, Space-Time, 5 Elements, and Taoist Heart, I have high expectations for the 5 of you. This time, you must work together and defeat Yi Qinghan. Do you understand? Yi Tong took a deep breath and said firmly, Understood. The other 4 were even more determined. Class 1 Hall nurtured them every day, and every time, they only had one goal in mind, and that was to defeat Yi Qinghan. Hence, the others were very excited. Lin Mo secretly touched his scabbard. He had not been in contact with Yan Yunbei for nearly 20,000 years. Among these people, the corners of their eyes were flickering, and the weapons in their hands were vibrating. They seemed to be excited, but only they knew that Yan Yunbei's name had touched the deepest secret in their hearts. Back then, when Yan Yunbei sent those children away, he only told them to forget everything. They only needed to remember the name Yan Yunbei. Yun Rui's youngest son, Yun Yang, Li Feng's grandson, Li Mo, and Jiang Jingtian's 6-year-old son, Jiang Qiufeng, had all grown up. More than 30 people were sent out back then, but now not even 12 of them were left. It was really cruel. Of those children who were sent out, the oldest was only 15 years old, and the youngest was only 6 or 7 years old. Now, only 1/3 of them were left. However, of the remaining 12, which one of them was not a top-notch supreme? Back then, when Yi Tong was sent out, the others knew that the children who were sent out had a slim chance of survival. If they could go back, the older generation of Kuang Manor would naturally be happy. If they could not, they could only cry and pray in the middle of the night that there would be no killing in the silence. The Dao Patroller swept his gaze over the crowd. He did not expect that there were 12 Kuang Manor members among this group of people. One must know that these people were very young when they came in. How strong could a child's willpower be? After so many years of brainwashing and hypnosis, even if there were spies, they should have rebelled by now. However, he did not expect that the remaining 12 were all people with strong willpower. They never thought of giving up the glory of Kuang Manor. Let's go! The Dao Patroller soared into the sky, his speed as fast as lightning. Yi Tong and the others followed closely behind. They chased after each other, unwilling to be left behind. Each one was faster than the other. The patroller smiled quietly. What he wanted was for this group of monsters to compete. If they could kill each other, he would definitely not stop them. Whoever could crush the corpses of these young paragons would definitely become an immemorial emperor. Their combat prowess would probably far surpass him, and they would become the most important chess piece of Class 1 Hall. These people traveled through the shortcut, crossing countless miles. They swept past the mountain peaks, passed through the forest, and braved the wind and waves. They rushed toward the node that connected the demon's ceiling cave and the ancient immortal world. They could completely block Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei before the node. More than 300 supreme beings were definitely not enough to crush Yi Qinghan. Yan Yunbei had the Dao Patroller to deal with them. In the depths of a mountain, the Dao Patroller led more than 300 supreme beings in all directions. Once they entered the forest, no one dared to release their aura. If anyone was exposed now, the Dao Patroller would not hesitate to kill them. Yi Tong leaned against the valley with a blade in his hand. He held a spirit herb in his mouth, and his eyes shone brightly. Lin Mo stood on an ancient tree 30 to 40 meters away. His aura was restrained like a sharp sword that could reach the sky. Dragons had their sons. Yi Tong and Lin Mo had completely inherited Yi Qinghan and Lin Wutian's advantages. Although they were separated by a generation, their blood and qi were closer to the two, showing signs of atavism. The two of them were thinking about how to save Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei. If they were exposed now, it would not be a good thing. Not only would they not be able to save Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei, they would also lose their lives. This was absolutely not allowed. Back then, Yan Yunbei had taught them countless times that if they wanted to take action, they must ensure their own safety. Otherwise, it would only increase the number of casualties. The Kuang Manor could not afford to lose elites. Yi Tong's eyes shone like teardrops, but his tears were covered by his mask. As Yi Qinghan's grandson, how could he not know about Yi Qinghan? Yi Qinghan was the glory of the Yi clan. He was also an ancestor. All the descendants wanted to shine like him. "Grandpa, can't I save you today?" Yi Tong knew very well what these 300 supreme beings represented. Even if the Taigu Emperor came personally, he would only lose once. If the world's #1 emperor was here, he would not be lucky. Chapter 2809. With the arrival of the Dao Patroller, not to mention his battle prowess, Yi Tong's 320 young supremes were either emperor's inheritances, sovereign god's inheritances, sovereign weapon inheritances, or even sovereign weapon inheritances. There were more than 300 of them. Back then, the 4 immemorial overgod's inheritors had almost crippled Yi Qinghan. How many times more were there now? Even if Yi Qinghan had Yan Yunbei and the multicolored snake as his helpers, it was useless. The patrol officer looked behind him. That was the node that Class 1 Hall had built back then. It could be used to enter the immortal world from the demon's sealing cave. However, it was sealed by Emperor Yen during the immemorial era. No one could break it. Later on, when the demon's sealing cave was buried, Class 1 Hall did not think of opening the node from the other side. If Yi Qinghan could enter the ancient immortal world from the immortal world, it was very likely that he had entered from there. This time, the Dao Patrol was gambling. He was gambling that Yi Qinghan would definitely return from this place. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei moved quickly, constantly approaching the Yunling Basin. This was a hilly basin, so the view was not good. It was difficult to spot the ambushers. The two traveled for about 3 to 4 months and rested once every 3 to 4 months, maintaining their peak combat strength. On this day, when they were 3 days away from the Yunling Basin, Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei chose to meditate in a valley. For the past 10,000 years, Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei had been rushing along. They did not cultivate much. However, because of the path to the top of Sky Ascension Peak, they had a more thorough understanding of order dharma and logos. Their combat strength was definitely above the patrol officers. However, there was nothing impressive about being a patrol master. Yi Tong's 300-plus young supreme beings were all close to the patrol master level. With more than 300 supreme beings working together, that was the foundation of Class 1 Hall. If they all came out, no one could stop them. Yi Qinghan was sitting cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by the light of anti-order dharma and logos. The cosmic demon core drew upon the power of the ancient immortal world to quickly recover the energy he had consumed in the past few days. At this moment, Yan Yunbei's thrusting path had already reached the pinnacle. It was all thanks to the heaven-startling rod art. Once the dagger was used, it could pierce through the sky and break through the dome. The Emperor's staff on his back seemed to still be immersed in the sorrow of its master's death. At this moment, it continuously trembled, releasing Emperor's might. It slowly surged into the distance, shocking the heavens and causing all methods to wail. Jing Tiandi had indeed died a miserable death. As his sovereign weapon, Jing Tiandi didn't even react when he saw Jing Tiandi's death. Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei understood why Jing Tiandi had died so miserably. The danger was getting stronger. Yi Qinghan never thought that it was Class 1 Hall who was encircling and suppressing him. Instead, he was worried about the newly promoted Taigu Emperor. There was nothing he could do about it. When these two great dangers clashed against each other, Yi Qinghan forgot about just how many supreme beings Class 1 Hall had created after 30 to 40,000 years of hard work. The ancient world of immortals had countless resources. It was too easy to cultivate supreme beings. 300 supreme beings were chosen from all the ancient gods and immortals, including the inheritances of monarchs and sovereigns. Many of the monarchs and sovereigns' bloodlines had died. Only 300 supreme beings came out. It really wasn't a lot. Several days later, Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei woke up at almost the same time. That kind of soul-piercing crisis forced them to wake up. Yi Qinghan looked in the direction they came from. He felt that the newly promoted Taigu Emperor had already caught up. The aura of the heavenly medicine is too strong. This Taigu Emperor is very sensitive to heavenly medicines. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to escape from his pursuit. Yi Qinghan said with a frown. They had to escape even if they couldn't. Since the Taigu Emperor was formed, he definitely had the ability to completely kill Yi Qinghan, an existence outside of the 5 elements. Even if he didn't kill him, he could still capture him alive. From then on, he would have no chance to become an emperor. Let's go, Yan Yunbei said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan nodded and sped towards the Yunling Basin. However, 3 days later, when they passed through the depths of the Yunling Basin, Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei reacted almost at the same time. Sush. With the patrol officer as the leader, more than 300 young supreme beings surrounded the huge basin. Each of them was a young supreme being. Their eyes under the mask were firm and resolute. Although their aura was restrained, they were definitely not easy to deal with. Yi Tong and Lin Mo, Yun Yang, Li Mo, Zhang Qiufeng, they were scattered among them and didn't know each other at all. However, they knew Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei. They suppressed their emotions and held it in. Sush. The patrol officer stood out. His face under the mask was ferocious. He laughed eerily and said, Yi Qinghan, Yan Yunbei, this emperor has been waiting for a long time. I have prepared a sumptuous meal for the two of you. Come with me. Sush. Yan Yunbei's figure flashed and wanted to disappear into the void. However, the sky was filled with a myriad of spells and rays of light. An invisible net appeared and blasted Yan Yunbei down. The patrol officer laughed and said disdainfully, Yan Yunbei, if I don't even know your strength, then I'm too stupid. This net is the thunder net of the immemorial god of thunder. It has already covered the entire space. It's impossible for you to perform your piercing path. Yan Yunbei took dozens of steps back. There were at least a few wounds on his body. The thunder net of the immemorial god was too terrifying. Sush. Yan Yunbei slowly pulled out the emperor's staff. Since he couldn't perform his piercing path, the emperor's staff art could be used. The patrol officer's eyes shone brightly. He waved his hand and wanted to take the emperor's staff art away. However, his emperor's staff art was not pure enough. The emperor's staff art obviously recognized Yan Yunbei, who was the direct disciple of the emperor. You've cultivated the real emperor's staff art. The patrol officer said coldly, I didn't expect the emperor to impart the real emperor's staff art to you. It seems that I have to capture you alive today. Sush. Yi Qinghan's body was surrounded by dragons and tigers fighting for supremacy. His aura soared into the sky. The laws and logos around him were distorted. At this moment, his eyes were filled with disdain as he looked at the patrol officer. He said coldly, Patrol officer, you weren't scared of me back then. Today, you've brought all the disciples of heaven out. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill all of you? With just the two of you? The patrol officer sneered. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He turned around and looked at the back. The Taigu Emperor's aura was getting thicker. This was not a place to stay for long. Of course, not. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and grasped heavy madness in his palm. The multicolored snake and Sovereign Yi appeared and stood in 4 different directions. The patrol officer laughed crazily. He pointed at the 2 spiritual pets and said disdainfully, I can at most send 4 people to deal with the 2 of them. Do you think you can deal with 320 young supremacies? Come with me and I'll spare your lives. Yan Yunbei's eyes flashed coldly as he said, "Attack!" Lin Mo unsheathed his sword. The sword light shocked the ancient immortal realm. The sword light swept past a supreme supremacy. The first supreme supremacy did not even have the chance to react and was killed by the sword energy directly. Boom! Yi Tong unsheathed his saber almost instantly and swept it in all directions. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. It was too fast. Almost at the same time, the 4 experts beside Yi Tong were killed before they could react. At the same time, Yun Yang, Jiang Qiufeng, Li Mo, and more than a dozen other experts attacked and killed more than 300 supreme supremacies. Because the betrayal was too fast, the patrol officer was stunned. It was too fast. More than a dozen people attacked so quickly that he, an emperor-level expert, could not react in time. Because the supreme supremacies were too close, they were only on guard against Yi Qinghan and Yan Yunbei. They did not guard against their teammates. "You!" the patrol officer roared. His eyes were so angry that they were about to explode. In the blink of an eye, because of these 12 young supremacies, Class 1 Hall had lost more than 50 young supremacies. In addition, Yi Qinghan, Yan Yunbei, and Graceful Ye's rapid attack had caused Class 1 Hall to lose more than 100 supreme supremacies. Excluding the 12 from the Crazy Manor, Class 1 Hall was left with less than 200 people. It was too fast, so fast that no one could have expected it. The patrol officer was still stunned. He glared at Yi Tong and Lin Mo angrily. These two were the people he valued the most. He did not expect them to be so ruthless and destroy the last generation's imperial weapon inheritance. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.